Hi, good morning. In a few minutes, we'll start with the program. Hi, good morning. Pleasant morning to all of us. Pleasant morning to all the viewers, BEMians, Buenos, and other students from other schools and faculty members. All the viewers over the FB pages of BUAMD, Bicol University, and the FB pages of different departments of BUCBEM. Good morning. As we celebrate the 52nd founding anniversary of BUCBEM, headed by our Dean, Dr. Eddie Essie, Associate Dean, Professor Sheila Disuyo, together with the four departments, the BUCBEM takes pride to share its meager contribution to the activities of this 52nd founding anniversary of Bicol University. Dabas BUCBEM Students Business Research Colloquium 2021, the online event, will showcase and feature the best thesis best business plans and project feasibility studies of our students, a product of their hard work and perseverance, despite of the challenges brought about or brought by the COVID-19. To begin with, let's open the program by an opening prayer, followed by the national anthem and the BU hymn.
Almighty, ever-living God, the most merciful and compassionate, we thank you for creation and the life you have given us. Together, we people of diverse religions, spiritual expressions and indigenous traditions, who invoke you by different names, humbly pray for your providence and protection. In the midst of the COVID crisis, strengthen and guide government leaders and private agencies, especially our administrators, faculty and staff, for the wisdom to do what is right and just. Enlighten the minds of students, that despite the educational limitations in this new normal, they may study diligently and effectively. Bless our families, remove our fears, and help us to trust in your love, so that by our example and generosity, we can inspire and help others. Grant all of us, especially the frontliners, good health and accept those who have died in your kingdom. Amen.
Puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay, lupang hinirang, tuyad ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisili, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mabaga, may nilagang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislap ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na naglilinig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim, lupa ng araw ng malapit pagsinta mo'y langit sa piling mo, aming ligaya na pamay mga api ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo. This is the school we wish to sing, of a school to honor and revere, a temple built by men of firmness, a mold for you to walk with pride, for He will always be united, although we tread on distant lands. We all shall cherish what you've taught us, that you wholeheartedly gave forth. Big University, burning torch of wisdom, fount of courage, hope and love, seed of truth and light. Big University, burning torch of wisdom, fount of courage, hope and love, seed
Once again, good morning. Thank you so much. I hope you are there. Just relax, and we'll be presenting to you a lot of activities today. And this is indeed an exciting and momentous moment on the part of BUCBEM, especially for our students, because we will be showcasing, presenting all their project feasibility studies, their thesis output, and the business plans. As I've said in our introduction, this is the product of their hard work and perseverance, despite of the challenges being faced by them, not only by the students, but by the faculty, brought by this COVID-19 pandemic. But nonetheless, there is a reason why we have to celebrate, because it's the founding anniversary of the Bicol University, and also it's high time for us to give some importance to our students who are our partners in this institution. So to begin with, to continue with our program, let's hear the message from our Dean, our beloved Dean, Dr. Eddie S.C.
Today is a very special day, not just because we are celebrating our Bicol University's 52nd birthday, but because today we shall be conducting, as part of such celebration, the first of its kind, BUCBEM Students Business Research Colloquium 2021, that showcases the research outputs from the students of the 4 departments: entrepreneurship, business administration, economics, and accountancy. This colloquium shares as the contribution of the college to the 52nd founding anniversary of BU, the research outputs of its students. May I therefore take this opportunity to congratulate our students, the faculty members who guided them in their research journey, the 4 department chairpersons, and the associate dean who organized this event. Professor Edgar Barameda of Entrepreneurship, Professor Cristina Ballesteros of Business Administration, Dr. Clea Bongat of Economics, Professor Ana Pabilona of Accountancy, and Associate Dean Sheila Disuyo. May I further thank Professor Rowena Zoilo, the officer in charge of our partner office, the Extension Management Division, and the President of Bicol University, Dr. Arnulfo Mascareñas. From the Bicol University College of Business, Economics, and Management, happy 52nd birthday, Bicol University.
Thank you so much, Dean, our ever supportive Dean of the Bicol University College of Business, Economics, and Management. To hear the appreciation remarks, let us call and present the appreciation messages to be given to us by our Associate Dean, Professor Sheila Bidisuyo, and other department chairs of the BU7.
A blessed day, everyone, as we celebrate the week-long 52nd Bicol University founding anniversary. The Bicol University College of Business, Economics, and Management, headed by our beloved Dean, Dr. Eddie S.C., brings you the BUCBEM Students Business Research Colloquium 2021. This is an avenue for business researchers to share their scholarly, and completed research and business plan outputs last school year 2020-2021. I know how you worked hard and look for alternatives and ways just to complete your business plan and research outputs due to this very challenging time. The challenges of COVID-19 may seem unnerving, and it can be an opportunity for growth and positive changes. May we strive to be hopeful, courageous, and resilient despite the adversities we have to face. I would like to express my heartfelt congratulations to all the presenters to this colloquium. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Entrepreneurship Department, this is Edgar S. Barameda, the Department Chair. Allow me to share with you with pride the proposed products of the fourth-year BS Entrep students of the Bicol University College of Business, Economics, and Management as they begin promoting and introducing in the market their outputs after more than 3 years of stay in the college. Dubbed as the virtual mercado, this audio-visual presentation will showcase the innovative and novelty products of all fourth-year students at the BS Entrep program aimed at providing the endless needs of the customers and clients. This presentation is the output and the result of the journey of our students, starting with the familiarization of the environment, identification of business opportunities, and conceptualization of business idea, crafting of business plan, and finally, the implementation stage, which is manifested by this presentation of their products. As the Bicol University celebrates its 52nd founding anniversary this 2021 with a theme, continuing the tradition of quality education amidst of pandemic, may this presentation and display merits the interest of the customers and clients viewing online and appreciate that these products were produced by our students amidst of the challenges faced by the present situation, the COVID-19 pandemic, while at the same time heeding the call to become the recipient of a quality education. Mabuhay and happy founding anniversary, Bicol University. On behalf of the Entrepreneurship Department, this is Edgar S. Barameda, the Department Chair. Allow me to share with you with pride the proposed products of the fourth-year BS and Entrep students of the Bicol University College of Business, Economics, and Management as they begin promoting and introducing in the market their outputs after more than 3 years of stay in the college.
As we celebrate the 52nd founding anniversary of Bicol University, I am pleased to be part of such kind of endeavor in developing students' scholarship, character, service, and leadership. To create something from nothing and to keep it going for so many years requires more foresight and true dedication. The passion and commitment of the employees made it possible for Bicol University to where it is now. At this special time, we give thanks for all of you who are here present and our students as well as to all those who have contributed to the life and success of this school throughout the 52 years of its existence. In behalf of Econ Family, College of Business, Economics, and Management, happy anniversary, Bicol University.
To our University President, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, to the Director of the Extension Management Division, Dr. Rowena S. Zoilo, to our Dean at the College of Business, Economics, and Management, Dr. Eddie S. C., to our Associate Dean, Professor Sheila B. Disuyo, to my colleagues, and to our students, a pleasant day to all of you. I would like to commend our students for their impressive outputs. And I also would like to thank them for sharing the results of their completed project feasibility studies to all of us. And to our university president and other university officials, thank you for gracing our event. Your support is heartwarming. Sincere appreciation too to the Extension Management Division headed by Dr. Rowena S. Zoilo for the support and technical assistance given to us in our event. And to our beloved Dean, Dr. Eddie S.C., for the support and motivation. Thank you, sir. Your being the prime mover in holding an activity where we showcase the outstanding work of our students is highly appreciated. Again, thank you very much, sir. To everyone who supports this event, thank you. Once again, a pleasant day to all of you.
Thank you so much, fellow chairpersons, and to our Associate Dean, Professor Sheila B. Disuyo. And now, we will now be presenting the outputs, the research outputs, the business plans, and the project feasibilities of our students. The presentation will begin with the output of the entrepreneurship department, followed by the business administration department and economics department and the accountancy department. The viewers, let's view their outputs, the students' outputs of the Bicol University College of Business Economics and Management.
Who would have thought that our normal way of living would change in an instant because of invisible enemies that threaten the lives of everybody? Because of COVID-19 pandemic, many have changed. Many have been affected. Lives of the people, health, education, and the economy. During the early times of this health crisis, businesses have suffered great downfall. Some operate seldomly, and there are some who lay off their employees. And the worst, some businesses have closed. As budding entrepreneurs, we believe that this pandemic is not a hindrance to our goals, thus a challenge that will strengthen and unleash the best in us. Hello everyone, presenting to you the Crab Cakes Bake Shop. Crab Cakes is providing pastry products such as cupcakes made of local crabs as we promote the importance of local resources. And that is the main difference of our product from existing ones. Currently, we have kamote cupcakes, carrot, and cassava cupcakes. These cupcakes will be perfect as family snacks or dessert in any kind of occasion. For product caught your interest, kindly contact us through our Facebook account that will be posted at the end of this video. Presenting the Cupcakes product. Currently, we have 3 products such as kamote cupcakes, carrot cupcakes, and cassava cupcakes. We will bring you a new, different taste of pastries.
You can also customize the frosting style or shade you want to match the celebration. We ensure a safe but eco-friendly packaging. You order, we deliver it at your home. Just contact us through Crabcake's Facebook account or phone number. Thank you.
Hi, I am Aaron N. Anastasio, the CEO of Corn Hub Company. Before I continue, I have a few questions. Have you ever heard the word binatog? Have you ever seen one? Or tasted one? If you're one of the lucky people who have tasted one in the past, when is the last time? Now, for those people who are probably thinking what it is, binatog is a traditional Filipino food that is commonly sold as street food. It has, well, corn obviously, freshly grated coconut, melted butter, salt and sugar for taste. Delicious, right? Sadly, there is no binatog vendor here in Albay. This is where Corn Hub comes in. Corn Hub's mission is to innovate traditional Filipino food and making it accessible to everybody. In our lunch, we offer 4 different binatog flavors in 2 different sizes, petite and busty. Our flavors are choco binatog, forbidden ube binatog, grinding cheese binatog, and of course, the classic binatog. We made sure our flavors are well designed and appealing to everyone. Of course, it's not just about the taste. Binatog contains corn, and corn contains many nutrients that are good for the skin, digestive system, heart, bones, muscle, you name it. To make sure our customers receive all of these benefits, we strategically located our production site in Albay and specifically chosen this packaging to make sure that the binatog will remain fresh and nutritious. Our products have online market presence through the utilization of different social media platforms. In Corn Hub, we promote safety and convenience. That is why we have partnered with a delivery service provider, which means our customers don't need to go to our store. They can just simply order it online and the binatog will be delivered right at their doorstep. Maybe you are thinking, how can we name our business Corn Hub with only binatog? Well, our team is already working on planning, developing, and innovating other traditional corn recipe naming mais con hielo, bayokbok, and the list goes on. My team consists of Justin Dominic Cabrera, our marketing manager, and his assistant, Dave Adrian Basa, our financial manager, Nick Absalom Loresto, and our production manager, Nico Perez, and his team, Carl Serrano, Joshua Aranya, Ian Buenaobra, and Ian Riamon. With that being said, we are Corn Hub, we are not green, we are yellow.
Good day, I am Ishamel Torres, one of the founders of Long Belly Frozen Products. Eating 3 meals a day is somehow challenging, right? Do you want to know the secret on how to get through it? Long Belly Frozen Products has something to offer. Now that it's pandemic, we made a convenient and affordable frozen patty, and not just one, but 3 varieties of frozen patties. You can reach and find us on our social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can message or contact us through our Facebook page, Instagram, and mobile number that will flash on your screens. Again, this is Long Belly Frozen Products. Basta halaba ang pati mo, busog ka!
Coffee has been part of our everyday life. Upon waking up, we take a cup of coffee while reading the newspaper for the daily news. Some grab their cup of coffee before going to work, and some just couldn't start a day without coffee in their bodies. As the seasons change, preference also does. Some want their coffee strong, some like it sweet, and some just want it neutral to strong and sweet. Hot, warm, or iced, it doesn't really matter as long as we can taste caffeine in it. Grandparents, bachelors, young professionals, and students most take coffee. With the hype of the different caffeine-infused drinks, this is where Slurp was created and brought to reality. It started as a simple school requirement we all wanted to finish and submit, and eventually became something that changed our lives. We all fell in love with the concept, the idea, and most especially the perfection of caffeine in it, and we decided to pursue the business. We often hear that people want something handy and easy, something they can hold together with their bags, books, or laptops. This is where Slurp started as an on-the-go drink that suits the taste and preference of the market. Besides the advantage of being handy and easy, we were also price competitive by having a fair price for the products that isn't overwhelming to our patrons. With the competitive advantage of having a quality product and a fair price, opportunities were overflowing. We were invited to join events and trade fairs. The product exposure became wide, and customers were rapidly increasing. Improvements were also made to keep up with the society, given that change is inevitable. Adapting to the changes will help the business survive, and this is why Slurp decided to invade the online market, where customers can easily see our products and reach us directly without the risk of human exposure, and it'll be convenient for them to make an order. Also, with upgraded packaging and more pleasing looks of our products, we aim to be known as one of the best coffee businesses that will be sure talk of the town, as one that serves quality coffee drinks for a reasonable price, covering the business areas of Old Albay District and Legazpi proper. As we prove to you that, surely you'll keep coming back for more.
B. Solid perfume. From the initials of the founding partners, Blessime Magdasok and Elijah Carullo, inspired from the verb be, which means exist, as fragrance is the most intense form of memory, B. Solid perfume aims to create memory through the existence of fragrance. Scent that speaks. Unlike liquid perfumes that are sprayed generously and glamorously and contains alcohol to maintain its liquid state, solid perfume is applied directly on the skin. It is alcohol-free, which is non-irritant to sensitive skin. Liquid perfume, which evaporates easily during application, lessens the maximum experience of the user. Solid perfume, on the other hand, when applied directly on the skin, makes the fragrance adhere more and blend well with user's natural oil. The product is proudly Bicolano with its main components, beeswax, pulp oil, and Manila elemi. Pili pulp oil and Manila elemi are both from the pili tree, which is native here in Bicol, a tree that symbolizes Bicolandia. Launching its first set of fragrances, these solid perfume fragrances are named after an empowering adjective, creating empowering sentences. Be virtuous, be valiant. Scent 1. Be virtuous. It has a very feminine, unique scent captured in its sweet, mild, fresh aroma. Good for the ones who are not into strong scents. A scent that you'll definitely fall in love with. Composed of sandalwood, lily, elemi, and orange. Scent 2. Be valiant. A strong and citrusy scent, suited for all, both feminine and masculine. The scent is made up from sandalwood, elemi, citronella, lily, sakura, and pomelo. This solid perfume will be available soon on Shopee and Lazada. You may follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Make your mornings matter.
Hi, I'm Ange, and I'll take you to different countries while you're staying at the comforts of your home. world is often expensive even without the pandemic. Finding new food to explore in different countries is unlikely yet to happen because of the situation right now. That's why we are here. Continental Drift will let you indulge the world. Continental Drift is an online food business that will serve beverage and sandwiches that originated from the 6 continents of the world: Asia, Australia, Africa, Europe, North America, and South America. The sandwiches are in different types, while the beverages are mostly fruit-based. Continental Drift is the first ever cafe to offer different sandwiches and beverages originating from the 6 continents of the world. We are here to help you to explore, taste, and provide quality food from the world without the need to travel. It will not just save your time, but also your money. Continental Drift will use locally sourced raw materials, partner with local vendors, create partnership with food delivery service companies that will deliver our products to our customers. Click your order and we'll make it right away. Means of promotion will be the use of Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll maximize the use of the social media accounts by boosting our posts and sharing it to our target market. So now, what food from other countries do you miss the most? Or do you have a sandwich or beverage that you want to taste? Buckle up, because Continental Drift is ready to let you indulge the world. Now, let me present to you our product offerings. At this continent, we have Sandwich de Miga from Argentina and Cholado from Colombia. Sandwich de Miga is a delicious multi-layer sandwich with no crust. Cholado is an icy beverage with fresh fruit and sweetened condensed milk. We have Semita and Banana Agua Fresca, both from Mexico. Founded in Puebla, Mexico, Semitas contain fresh ingredients and juicy meat. Agua Fresca, which is translated as fresh waters, are typically made from a blend of fresh fruit plus water and sugar. To represent the European continent, we have Croque Monsieur from France and Raspberry Peach Italian cream soda from Italy. Croque Monsieur is a staple food in Paris, France, while Raspberry Peach Italian cream soda is a fusion of soda water, ice, flavored syrup, and cream that gives the drink a soothing, smooth, and sparkly sweet taste. For our Australian sandwich and beverage, we offer to you the Australian ham sandwich and Nutella and pretzel milkshake. For Africa, we have chicken gatsby that originated from South Africa and Moroccan mint lemonade from Morocco.
Is the world's largest and most diverse continent. Out of 48 countries, Continental Drift will offer to you one of the most famous sandwiches in Korea and beverage from India. Korean street toast is a popular to-go sandwich in Korea, while mango lassi is a yogurt-based drink that is popular for its incredibly refreshing taste.
So what's your pick? Just click and we'll provide you your food in just a blink. Continental Drift, letting you indulge the world.
Okay, once again, good morning. Before we continue with the presentation, we are honored that we are joined by our president, no other than our president, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas. Sir, good morning. And
Good morning,
we'd
Edgar.
like to,
Good morning.
good morning, sir. Also, we have our dean, Dr. Eddie SC, joining us in the activity this morning, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Sir, may we solicit your message about what we are doing right now? This is an activity of BUCBEM, headed by our Dean, Dr. Eddie C. The BUCBEM Students Business Research on Colloquium. Sir, good morning and happy founding anniversary. Your message, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Edgar. To the Dean of the College of Business, Economics and Management, Dr. Eddie C. To the Associate Dean of the College, Professor Sheila Disoyo. To the department chairs of the college, the faculty members, dear students, presenters, good morning. The way the world works
morning, sir,
dictates the continuing need for research and development. The complexities that we face now are more daunting than the last decades. UNESCO on Research and Development says that studies have found that every dollar invested in R&D generates nearly $2 in return. And that, while the rate will vary, research and development is an important driver of economic growth. We cannot diminish the fact that for a country to significantly progress, R&D investments should likewise be a top priority. The pandemic and its subsequent race to develop vaccines have fully emphasized the important role that researchers and their developed technologies continue to play in making the world a better place. Therefore, it is good to start building a culture of research among the young, especially our students in Bicol University. In our own country, we have yet to fully develop R&D as part of every organizational culture. Thus, gatherings such as these, where young and budding researchers can convene, compete, and share each other's R&D endeavors, should be highly encouraged. The possibility of awards that one may get or receive should not really be the central focus, but the sense of fulfillment a true researcher gets when the hard work pays off and the ultimate goal of the R&D undertaking is achieved. As we move forward towards continuing the quality of education amidst the pandemic, let us always keep in mind that the world is filled with issues and concerns just waiting to be examined and understood, including solutions to present problems just waiting to be discovered. So here's to more of this kind of gatherings. And with that, I'd like to congratulate CBEM for initiating this kind of activity. We need more of these productive assemblies. I commend the organizers and those behind the success of this research colloquium. Congratulations for your productive and prolific student researchers here at the College of Business, Economics, and Management. Good day and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Happy founding anniversary to all of us. Thank you for the support given to us and the BUCBEM for the holding or conducting of this event. Thank you so much, sir.
My pleasure,
Okay.
Ed and Edgar.
Yes,
See
sir.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
See you on the 25th.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. We have our ever supportive dean also, who is always with us, supporting with this kind of event in endeavor to our students, especially to our students that we know for a fact that they are now having their hard times because of the pandemic. By the way, before we proceed, let me remind those students, faculty members, to kindly register your name so that it will be counted. The EMD is needing that. And after the presentation, kindly don't forget to evaluate this activity. The link for the evaluation and registration was already sent to your respective department chairs. Thank you so much. And now to proceed.
Before
Yes,
I go, I just would
Yes,
like
sir.
to announce to CBEM and our student researchers that last September 21, we launched the DOST Bicol University Technology Business Incubation Center. And the purpose of which is to provide assistance to our researchers or their students who would like to incubate their technologies and later on join in the process of commercializing their technologies. So we hope that our students from CBEM, especially those in the entrepreneurship department, would make use of these facilities at the OSAS building. It's there. So we have all the facilities that are ready, and the policies, which you all know, was approved by the board last March. So let's make use of these opportunities here in Bicol University. So with that, thank you very much again, Edgar, and thank you, Ed, for inviting me. So I'll see you.
Thank you, sir.
Salamat, sir.
Sir, Dr. C, baka mayroong rejoinder po our dean. Sir C.
Actually, Juan, maraming salamat po sa Sir President for blessing this occasion. Happy 52nd birthday, Bicol University. We are happy that we are together in the 52nd birthday of Bicol University. Again, thank you.
So I'll see you later, Ed. Are you joining? Yung sa mga deans?
Hindi po, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Sir President and our Dean. Thank you so much for the endless support for this kind of activities and
my
for
pleasure.
Encouragement. Thank you so much. So we'll proceed with the presentation. Let's continue the presentation of the BS Entrep program, and then followed by the BS Administration Department, the Economics Department, and the Accountancy Department. Again, reminders to the students, to the viewers, to the attendees, kindly register your name, and then the evaluation thereafter. Thank you so much. Let's continue the presentation.
Have you ever been stuck in a situation when you crave something sweet, but can't decide what to buy and eat because the food choices around you are giving the same experience as you take a bite? Don't worry, we got you. Alcoholic drinks are usually served in a glass, but here, I'll let you in on a little something. Alcoholic beverages are served on your plate. We present you Drunken Sugar. Our company introduces new, boost-up bites with a kick that you and your friends will surely indulge in. For every occasions or even just on a regular days, we offer you desserts infused with liquor to give you the perfect boozy treat. We have cookies, brownies, cupcakes, and ice cream. Our desserts are carefully crafted, uniquely made with infusion of liquor. Let's booze each other up and be ready to eat up to drink up. Drunken Sugar, bringing you infusion without confusion.
Philjop Takoyaki Fusion serves the best quality takoyaki from best quality ingredients. Our main priority is to satisfy customers who seek for quality comfort food during the pandemic. People of all ages can enjoy a warm, freshly cooked takoyaki in Filipino style. Philjop Takoyaki Fusion is a fusion of Filipino cuisine and Japanese takoyaki in one. We serve takoyaki with different flavors such as asado takoyaki, adobo takoyaki, sisig takoyaki, pinangat takoyaki, and lechon takoyaki. Each filling is homemade and authentic for every Filipino taste. Philjop Takoyaki Fusion will open soon on Kamalig, Ginubatan, and Legazpi City, and we will partner with food delivery services near you. Please support entrepreneurship students.
Have you heard about grazing tables? Grazing tables are filled with creatively arranged cold cuts, cheese, fruits, nuts, canapes, and other appetizers you wish to have. It is usually present in big celebrations like weddings and birthdays. Unfortunately, the pandemic restricts people to start big events and gatherings. Home celebrations, mini reunions, alfresco trips are this time's safest way to celebrate.
Whether it may be small or big hangouts, food is always necessary to complete your table. Food should not just be delicious but must be presentation-wise, not just to satisfy our taste buds but also appeals to our eyes. Worry no more about too much food prepping, grocery piling, and rest too happy, because the new deal is here.
Everyone, we present to you our grazing and food boxes. Grazing box give grazing tables new face. It is one box containing many of the food choices you love. The goal of the product is to give life to your simple celebrations or quality time by offering an artistically arranged food and snack in a box, ensuring both flavor and presentation. It is perfect for your house parties, friends' road trips, movie marathon of the family, picnic dates with your one and only, or wine nights with the titas. The proposed product offers convenience and level-up food experience. Moreover, the product can also stand as a souvenir or giveaways for weddings and birthdays. Also as a gift for holidays, anniversaries, Mother's Day, or a gift to your relative's house welcoming party or for your best friend's bridal shower. Our grazing box is in the next level of common food packages. It belongs to anyone, anywhere, and in any type of gatherings.
The business will offer 5 variants to choose from, and 4 available size perfect for yourself or for your family, friends, and to share with the one you love. We have the charcuterie box, sweet tooth, out for a picnic, pick and stick, and surprise party, which are available in 4 sizes: mini, small, medium, and large. The charcuterie box includes premium cheese, cold cuts, some citrus and fruits and nuts. Sweet Tooth, fully loaded with sweetness, includes entremets, chocolates, pastry treats, and delectable delights. Our partner in your picnic date is our Out for a Picnic box, which offers picnic must-haves such as chips, finger foods, fruits, and sandwiches. To upgrade our street favorites, Pick and Stick box offers you with fries, chicken wings, and top pick street foods and finger food relish. Lastly, the surprise party bags is loaded with fries, potato chips, and nachos, topped with flavors and drizzled with the combinations of creaminess and cheesiness.
Flavor and creativity is what we offer, but convenience must also matter.
Our grazing boxes are here as the answer, the best food package for your celebration and adventure.
Hi, my name is Jesser Hernandez and I am here to create and promote our unique butter and nutritious fruit mixture of the tastiest budget-friendly crepes that will serve as a gift of happiness to everyone. Folks, you probably heard that breakfast is one of the most important meal of the day. And pancakes are the most common breakfast that we usually eat. So, we made a little upgrade and set of variation of pancakes. Let me introduce to you the Pancake Royale. As you can see in the presentation, those are the variation of pancakes that we made. It's actually pancake plus crepes, so we call it pancakes. For those who aren't aware, crepes are delicacy in Japan, which is have fruit mixture inside of it with different designs. Setting it aside, nowadays we know that most of the people with no age limit are so immersed when it comes to social media, such as Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. So those variation was designed for them to post it to their social media account, making it much more presentable and much more what the millennial calls Instagrammable. So we designed those products for them to post originally, but there is a hidden meaning between our product that most of them are not aware. We, the group of pancakes, carefully research the mineral content and the nutrition content of every fruit that we mix. We made different set of mixture that we know that the vitamins and mineral are enough for them, for our customer, to boost their immunity by just buying one grape variation in our product. So this giving us advantage for them when they buy our product, they actually getting a free booster for them for their immune system, which is they can post it, they can boast it on their account, but at the same time they're getting enough vitamins needed. So because we know we are now in the pandemic, in the midst of pandemic, we need our immune system to be strengthened. So those are the advantage of our pancake Koreal that we are introducing to you.
Hi, I'm Aubrey, and let's have a little secret. Healthy, fresh, one of a kind.
Here's the secret to help you keep healthy and happy. The food provider that offers the healthy version of instant noodles. The Secret Noodles. The company provides customers healthy meal with convenience, fast, and efficient customer service. It helps those who have tight schedules to stay healthy, maintain their balanced diet, and those who are under stress and craving for comfort food. It offers a healthy and full-loaded food in a form of unique noodle dish. The stir-fried noodles are made out of rice and finest local ingredients, freshly bought to qualify the taste of the noodles. It offers variety of flavors that will not just suit your taste preference, but also energize your body throughout the day. The three unique and delicious flavors are original, mac and cheese, and vegan. Original stir-fried noodles has Singaporean vibe and offers the taste of happiness in one bowl. Mac and cheese stir-fried noodles offers the entrant cheesiest noodles that attracts the youngsters with sweet palate. Vegan stir-fried noodles offers the healthiest entrant for those who are health conscious and eat dietary meals. We serve it fresh and hot. Once you order, we cook and deliver. You'll never know the real taste if you don't try it.
Are you now curious about the secret? Well, we have Instagram, Facebook page, and a TikTok account that may give you a hint of what we are keeping. The only secret that you can keep is secret noodles.
Let us bow our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, Lord, for your love, wisdom, and guidance. Thank you for this opportunity to have a research final defense together with our dear panelists, advisor, and co-researchers. Enlighten us to listen, understand, and share insights for the improvement and success of this study. Above all, we pray that you'll continuously heal us and be with us all in fighting with the challenges brought by this COVID-19 pandemic. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
To the Board of Panelists, the Chairman, Professor Janet Poca, the members, Professor Gertrude Peña and Professor Mary Ann Ansano, and to our very own advisor, Professor Julianne Lustan, a pleasant day to everyone. And thank you for allowing us to deliver our final research defense.
Our research is entitled The Adaptive Changes in Familial Finances Management During the Pandemic Among Students of Bicol University Institute of Physical Education, Sports and Recreation, conducted by Arian May Bonacqua,
John Andrinas,
Jasmine Peregrino,
and Jacob Sibilia of Bicol University College of Business Economics and Management, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration, major in Management.
We conducted an online survey among students of BUIPSR to find the answers to the questions in our statement of the problem. This study aims to answer the following questions. First, what is the profile of the household? By knowing who is the head of the family, the number of the household members, the number of children belonging to the household, and their annual family income, followed by what is the most expensive item in the household budget before COVID-19 pandemic, and what is the most expensive item in the household budget during COVID-19 pandemic? Next, what causes change in budget allocation for household items except for quarantine policies implemented? And lastly, what are the adaptive changes in the familial finances management? For the head of the family, the respondents were asked to provide the person who is primarily responsible in the family management between the father, the mother, or other family members. The result of the survey revealed that 61 out of the 134 respondents, or the 46% of the students' households, are headed by the father. 18 respondents, or the 13% of the students' households, are headed by the mother, and 55 respondents, or 41% of the students' households, are headed by the other family members like their grandparents or the eldest siblings. This suggests that family management among students of Bicol University Institute of Physical Education, Sports and Recreation in majority is led by the father, with that being the answer of 46% of the 134 survey respondents. For the total number of household members, the respondents were asked to provide the number of their household members in tiers of 1 to 3 members, 4 to 6 members, 7 to 9 members, and 10 and above members. The results of the survey revealed that 16.4% of the households have 1 to 3 members in their household, 52.2% of the households have 4 to 6 members in their households, 25.4% of the households have 7 to 9 members in their household, and only 6% of the households have 10 members and above in their household. This suggests that the households among students of Bicol University Institute of Physical Education, Sports and Recreation in majority have 4 to 6 members in their household, with that being the answer of 52.2% of the 134 survey respondents. For the number of children living inside the house, the respondents were asked to provide the number of children below 18 years old that are part of their household in tiers of 1 to 3 children, 4 to 7 children, 8 to 10 children, and more than 10 children. The results of the survey conducted revealed that 84.3% of the household have 1 to 3 children, 13.4% of the household have 4 to 7 children, 0% of the households have 8 to 10 children, and only 2.2% of the household have more than 10 children below 18 years old living inside the house. This suggests that the household of students in Bicol University Institute of Physical Education, Sports and Recreation in majority have 1 to 3 children living inside the house as part of their household, with that being the answer of 84.3% of the 134 survey respondents. For the annual family income, this will be discussed by my co-researcher, John Andrenas.
The annual income section in the online survey questionnaire is composed of ranges. The respondents can choose if their annual income is below 100,000 pesos, 101 to 250,000, 251 to 500,000, or 500,000 pesos and above. The percentage of the respondents who choose the range of below 100,000 pesos is 74.6%. It is followed by the 18.7% for the ranges of 101 to 250,000, and the rest that follows shows least portion in the pie chart. Therefore, the annual income of the respondents of the Institute of Physical Education, Sports and Recreation, Bicol University is below 100,000 pesos. The next section is the identification of the most expensive item in the budget list of the households before the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic. Within the questionnaire, listed the following items, namely the food, transportation, utilities, leisure, communication, and shopping. The result sorted through ranking. It showed that food is rank 1 based from the 96 respondents that considers it as the top 1 expensive in the budget list. It is followed by transportation as the rank 2 with 40 supporting respondents. Utilities rank as the third expensive item in the list. Leisure hailed as the fourth ranked item. Communication as the fifth ranked, and the least expensive in the budget list of the households belongs to shopping. The items during COVID-19 pandemic must also be identified. Hailing as the rank 1, food is at the top list of the most expensive item in the budget list of every households. Gathered the support of 105 responses. Food is followed by transportation, ranked as the number 2 most expensive, approved by 56 respondents. The third rank is utilities. The fourth one is leisure. The fifth most expensive item is communication, and the least expensive in the budget list of the households belongs to shopping. The next part will be discussed by our co-researcher, Jasmine Peregrino.
For the costs of change in budget allocation, the last part in the survey form aims to determine the reason why there is a change in households' budget allocation aside from the quarantine policies being implemented. Options were given such as change in income, change in work arrangement, change in family members' activities, and change in family members' needs. Additionally, if the respondent's reason of change in budget allocation were lacking from the previously mentioned option, the respondent can input an answer by selecting the other option wherein a respondent answered change in price range of necessities. So, as you can see in the figure, the outcome of the survey conducted evidently showed that 60.4% of the household's cost of change in budget allocation is due to change in income. Ranked next to change in income is the change in family members' needs, which acquired 20.9% from the total of 134 survey respondents. Change in work arrangement with 9.7%, change in family members' activities with 8.2%, and a respondent inputted an answer of change or increase in price range of necessities. This further implies that almost half of the households represented by the students of BUIPESR, the main reason on why there is a change in budget allocation is the change in income. For the adaptive changes in familial finances management, through the data gathered on the familial finances management before and during pandemic, adaptive changes can now be analyzed. So based on the survey that has been conducted, the ranking on the most expensive items or activities of the families before the pandemic is still the same as to the during pandemic. However, it can be noted that there is a significant change in the frequency of responses or the number of students who chose a specific item on the list. It can also be noted that on the other items listed by the respondents, an answer of health-related bills, just like medicines, is where households also allocate their budget, in which it acquires 37%. In relation, the family finances during the pandemic indicated that items concerning health and safety exceeds the list of other items or activities that the respondents prioritize, in which it gained 41%. And also, there is an obvious increase on the total responses to mobile load or Wi-Fi expense before pandemic, 16% to the 29% during pandemic. For the next part, let us welcome Jacob Sevilla.
For the conclusion, the size of household of BUIPSR student meet the average and ideal household size of Filipino family. However, their annual family income is below that of which the average annual family income of Filipino families. Before the pandemic, household of BUIPSR students prioritizes their necessities while occasionally purchasing or availing non-essential items or activities like for leisure and shopping. While during the pandemic, the most important items are given top priority, more than ever nearly removing the non-essential activities and items that they usually purchase and avail. In the midst of income instability due to the change in income from pandemic-inflicted job, uncertainties and job loss, students of BUIPSR have prioritized their budget to and allocating the scarce available financial resources they have to the most necessary product, while allocating lesser budget from their already scarce and divided financial resources to non-essentials. For their recommendations, for businesses to concentrate on establishing and offering products or services which are indeed necessary and demands for our everyday living, as well as in healthcare and safety aspects in this time of pandemic. And another, to offer delivery services for customers to at least lessen transportation expense which they can further allocate to the other household necessities. For government policymakers to make sound economic decisions in minimizing the impact of COVID-19 and future pandemic or other economic shocks, policies and regulation must be thoroughly considered or implemented to address the price volatility and continuous increase of price of goods. For business owners and managers, they should work collaboratively with employees to cut a certain percentage of salaries and wages, if agreed by both parties, since taking such action can better maintain total workforce level. And lastly, for practitioners in business industries to realize how COVID-19 pandemic has impacted or will impact household finance management and how can business operate to mitigate such impact and further adapt to change brought by the pandemic. Organizations will have to understand resistant technologies as once today's useful online business platforms and ways to manage change both among employees as well as customers.
So that would be all. Thank you, keep safe, and God bless us all.
A pleasant day to my co-researchers, our professor who also serves as our research advisor, and to the panel of evaluators. Our study is entitled Adaptive Changes in Familial Operations Management During the Pandemic Among the Students of Bicol University College of Education. This is to present to you the results and discussion as well as the conclusions and recommendations. With that, I, Mindan Alim, will begin the presentation with a discussion of the results obtained from the profile of the household. Starting with the head of the family. 68% of the households are headed by the father, which came from 187 responses from the population. This indicates that fathers are generally in charge of their families for most of the households our respondents had. As you can see from this graph, the father ranked first at 187 out of 275 respondents, the mother 40, and others 48. The others standing for grandmother, grandfather, the child themselves, a guardian, their sister, and aunt or uncle, adding up in total of 275 responses. Moving on with the total number of households. With 177 responses out of the total population, or 64.4% of the total percentage, the survey revealed that majority of households have 4 to 6 members. Represented by a pie graph, we can see that most of the respondents had 4 to 6 in total number of their members, followed by ones who had 7 to 9 members, then 1 to 3 members, and finally, the ones who exceeded more than 10 members in their homes. Next, we have number of children below 18 in the family. Corresponding to the study's results, 60.7% of respondents have 1 to 3 children under the age of 18 living in their household. Since most children are not yet responsible for household duties and may not be aware of the changes in family setup caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, this means that family operations management may have a direct effect on their daily activities. Represented by a pie graph, the results show most households have a number of 1 to 3 children under 18 in their household, followed by none below 18, then 16 responses for 4 to 7 members under 18, and no responses for the 8 to 10 and more than 10 option. And here we have the result for the annual family income. According to the findings of the study, 68.4% of respondents earn less than 100,000 pesos a year. This is undeniably the most obvious option, as many jobs had been laid off, resulting in a decrease in household income as the COVID-19 pandemic progresses. This amount of money would certainly be inadequate to meet the needs of each family member. Presented with yet another pie graph, it could be seen that most households earn an income below 100,000 pesos, with 188 respondents choosing this option. This is followed by 62 respondents answering with 101,000 to 250,000, then 21 respondents for 251,000 to 500,000, and lastly, the remaining 4 answering with above 500,000 pesos.
This is Marian Hizala presenting to you the results obtained from the respondents in regards with their household operations management prior to and during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the respondents, prior to the pandemic, mothers' primary responsibilities included cooking, doing the laundry, and marketing. Children, on the other hand, were in charge of cleaning the house and taking care of pets, while fathers were mainly in charge of repairing and maintaining the house. Apart from the tasks done by the mother and children, some respondents stated that their house helper is in charge of doing the laundry and cleaning. According to the respondents, assistance from some extended family members were also observed in doing household operations, such as grandparents, aunties, and uncles participating also in household tasks. With regard to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and its effects and changes in household operations management, there have been notable changes in terms of doing operations tasks, such as children taking over the laundry job, but they are still in charge of cleaning the house and taking care of pets. Mothers are still in charge of cooking and going to the market, and fathers are still in charge of fixing and maintaining the house, in addition to being the family's primary provider. The assistance of a housekeeper and extended family members were still stated in the responses of the respondents. This is Charmaine Larce, and I will discuss the results obtained from the respondents in connection to what caused the changes in their operations management in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the findings of the study, 42.2% of the respondents said that changes in work arrangement were the key cause of changes in their household's operations during the COVID-19 pandemic. With the transition from a traditional physical work setting to digital setting, family members needed to redesign their responsibilities at home. With regard to the adaptive changes in household's operations management, due to the sudden work arrangements, the primary members responsible in carrying out such household operations are handed on to other family members. On the other hand, heads of households needed to perform multiple jobs to meet their family's financial commitments. In this day and age, all family members must contribute to the completion of family daily household activities in order to reduce the load on other members who are already overburdened with job and academic commitments. To conclude the gathered and interpreted findings from the respondents, the typical household profile of the respondents include a father who serves as the family's head, an average family size of 4 to 6 members, have 1 to 3 children under the age of 18 years old, and an annual income of below 100,000 pesos, which is basically insufficient for meeting the needs of each family member, especially in times of the pandemic. When the pandemic struck, there were noticeable changes in family operations management, especially in the tasks performed by mothers and children. While father's primary role in the household is to repair and maintain the house, in addition to being the primary provider for the family. Changes in the work arrangements of parents, changes in income, and changes in needs are the primary reasons for some shifts in familial operations management, provided that other family members have existing responsibilities in school and work life. The world shifted when the pandemic hit. Societies at large have been greatly affected, and so have rural communities. Urban communities have undergone dramatic economic downfall due to business closures, but most significantly, the basic unit of society, the family, has been greatly affected. As the COVID-19 pandemic altered both the way individuals buy and receive products and services, the following recommendations to businesses has been drawn. To keep up with the preceding event, the first step for the businesses is to develop the strengths of their operations in order to adjust and adapt to the new normal while meeting and catering to the demands and needs of their consumers. For business development, stability, and profitability at this time of crisis, business owners must set a goal of creating long-term value while taking into account the unforeseen future occurrences, so that when this happen again, they can avoid major shutdown and insolvency, which may impact the livelihoods of their employees. Next, companies and other businesses must develop and improve their supply chain operating systems to suit ever-changing client needs and volatile market conditions, so that the market supply of commodities does not run out in times of emergency, such as what happened when pandemic struck. Furthermore, businesses must accelerate their transition to digital commerce as part of their adaptation to the new normal, such as providing contactless and cashless purchases, since health restrictions will still be imposed to ensure the individuals' and families' health are protected. Lastly, businesses must have a quick and feasible solution for emergency crisis and economic downfall to ensure the safety of their assets, employees, and consumers. This ends our presentation of our completed research study entitled Adaptive Changes in Familial Operations Management During the Pandemic Among the Students of Bicol University College of Education. This has been
Maiden Alim,
Marian Hizola, Charmaine Larce. Thank you very much.
Participation in family recreation experiences often facilitates beneficial outcomes for all family members. Due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, almost everyone on Earth is forced to stay at home that had affected the familiar recreation management of different families around the world. In the study being conducted, the researchers focused on determining the adaptive changes of the familial recreation management among Bicol University College of Education permanent non-teaching personnel. More specifically, the study aims to analyze the profile of the household in terms of head of the family, the total number of household members, number of children living inside the house, the annual family income. Furthermore, it focuses on answering the major activities before and during the COVID-19 pandemic and the causes of change in the recreational activity aside from quarantine policies. And lastly, it aims to determine the adaptive changes in family recreation management of the respondent. Out of all 16 permanent non-teaching respondents of Bicol University College of Education, all of the total population answered the online survey conducted.
A typical family is viewed as a family consisting of two parents and children. In some families, either the mother or the father is considered as the head of the family, but usually, the father is perceived to be the head in most families.
Results of the survey conducted shows that 9 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 56.25% of the total responses, revealed that their household is headed by the mother of the family. This implies that most of the family management of respondents is led by mothers in every household.
Such results from the survey conducted give rise to reasons as to why mothers became the head of the family. Applebury states that families came up with splitting the responsibilities wherein mothers provide the needs of the family and fathers are assigned to do the household duties, while Indrayanti et al. 2018 states that a single mother has to hold multiple roles such as earning a living and guiding her children. Respondents were asked to provide the total number of family members who are in the same household and part of the family management. Results of the survey conducted shows that 8 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 50% of the total responses, revealed that their household member ranges from 1 to 3. This suggests that some of the respondents are part of a nuclear family or a single-parent family raising 2 children. Respondents were asked to provide the total number of children below 18 in the family who are in the same household and part of the family management. Results of the survey conducted shows that 10 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 62.5% of the total responses, revealed that the number of children below 18 in their family ranges from 1 to 3. Most of the respondents have 1 to 3 children below 18 that needs guidance about overall health, especially this time of pandemic. HealthyChildren.org states that children rely on their parents for safety, both physical and emotional. Moreover, children's huge source of strength this time of pandemic are their parents. Respondents were asked to provide their annual family income, wherein 10 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 62.5% of the total responses, revealed that their annual family income ranges from 101,000 pesos to 250,000 pesos, which can affect household budgets throughout the year, especially during this pandemic.
Before the occurrence of COVID-19 pandemic, family recreation management has been part of every family's life. Participation in these recreation activities provides people of all ages to improve their health, well-being, enjoy nature, or simply have fun with family and friends. Based on the data gathered, 16 out of 16 respondents answered malling and walking as their major family recreation activities and ranked first among other provided activities, while subscription to mobile applications ranked 16 with 0 response. Table 3.5 shows the frequency and rank of the recreation activities mostly engaged by families of the 16 permanent non-teaching personnel of Bicol University College of Education. It implies that before the pandemic, families spend most of their leisure time outside through physical activity like walking and going to the mall with 100% response.
When COVID-19 pandemic struck the Philippines, lockdown on cities have been implemented, forcing the families to stay inside their houses, limiting the recreational activities they can do. Results of the survey conducted revealed that watching TV, YouTube, or Netflix ranked first as the major recreational activity during the pandemic with a total of 16 respondents or 100% of the total responses. According to Borser et al. 2021, social distancing and lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic substantially impacted individuals' daily habits and well-being. Within such a context, digital technology may provide a welcome source of alternative forms of connection and entertainment while watching television. Streaming services showed a remarkable increase in membership subscription such as YouTube and Netflix throughout the period.
The impact brought by the pandemic forces most organizations to conduct some adaptive changes and adjustments, forcing organizations to shift into remote or full-scale work from home plans to sustain their operations amid the global pandemic. As to the result of the survey conducted, it revealed that 12 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 75% of the total responses, regarded the change in work arrangement due to pandemic as the cause of changes in their familiar recreation activities. According to Gregory and Milner 2009, work from home is positively associated with life domain, including work-family balance, family satisfaction, and life satisfaction. The pandemic has created an impact on families by disrupting and changing their usual familiar recreation activities. And for families to remain active and engaged in recreational activities, families were forced to find ways on adapting to changes in familiar recreation management brought by the pandemic. Based on the survey conducted, results revealed that 16 out of 16 respondents, with a percentage of 100% of the total responses, regarded walking as the major recreation. However, it significantly changed due to the pandemic, where watching TV, YouTube, or Netflix ranked first as the major recreation activities during the pandemic, with a 100% of the total responses, or 16 out of the 16 respondents.
The Bicol University College of Education permanent non-teaching personnel households are governed by both a patriarchal and matriarchal system. The households are classified as nuclear type or single parent raising 2 children, which is classified as a small-sized structured family and mostly consists with children under the age of 18 who require supervision and guidance on decisions to make, particularly on recreational activities to do and involve in their daily life on the new normal. Most families are classified as lower middle and middle class that usually earn an average amount of the annual family income. It implies that families should be wise on allocating budget for their primary needs, and they should also consider allocating budget for their familiar recreations to balance their overall health, especially during this pandemic. The family's recreation management before the pandemic most likely involved outdoor activities, and instead to be part of the balanced family leisure patterns as indicated in the theory, such as walking and malling, and has been a huge part of the lifestyle of most Filipinos. However, due to the pandemic, lockdowns, and protocols, it abruptly shifted from outdoor engagement to indoor activities, such as watching TV, YouTube, Netflix, and gardening, which are commonly done by families. It implies that non-teaching respondents had adapted to the lockdowns that happened in their cities, which limits the recreational activities outdoor and focusing on the indoor activities. Aside from this, it also changed the nature of the work environment and corporate interactions, allowing some organizations to shift into remote or full-scale work-from-home plans or work-from-home scheme. This is an implication that the change in the work arrangements due to COVID-19 directly influences the decisions of the permanent non-teaching staff of Bicol University College of Education in choosing their familial recreations activity. As a result, respondents place so much importance on their family safety and well-being throughout this pandemic by adapting to the changes brought by new normal to traditional recreation activities and shifting their usual outdoor activities to indoor leisure opportunities that will keep them out of crowded places with little or no contact with other people.
After the thorough analysis of the data, there are certain things to further improve the study. The parents of the children, 18 years old and under, must educate their children about the protocols and guidelines implemented by the government. The respondents can already have minimal participation in outside activities but should ensure that they follow the protocols implemented by the government. The non-teaching respondents shall move towards some physical recreational activity since based from the survey, most of the recreational activity they do are sedentary, but the respondents must follow the health protocols implemented by the government. The permanent non-teaching staff of Bicol University College of Education shall establish an effective time management plan to achieve life-work balance where they are able to fulfill their jobs while being involved in familiar recreational activities. The families of Bicol University College of Education permanent non-teaching staff should consider different ways to adapt to the new normal, as familiar recreation activities contribute to human welfare and wellness. Despite the shift or sudden changes due to pandemic, families should maintain an active familiar activity by getting involved in indoor recreation activities which require lesser human interaction. Truly, the pandemic has changed how each and every one of us live. New challenges that emerged brought by the COVID-19 pandemic forced family to deal rapidly with the dynamics of situation that lead to difficult choices and face destruction on work, community, and even at home. But it doesn't stop us from continuing with how we deal with our everyday life, including how we cope with the recreation management in this.
Good day, panelists! We are here today to present our research study. May we introduce ourselves first? I am Paula Nicole Maceres.
I am Tere Therese Enfestan.
And I am Isabella Marie Prieto. Our research study is entitled Adaptive Changes in Familial Finances Management During the Pandemic Among Bicol University College of Arts and Letters faculty members.
This comprises the rationale, framework, methodology,
The presentation of results and discussions, and the conclusions, recommendations, and business implications. COVID-19 pandemic completely changed the world, affecting the lives of many individuals, most especially on households. Government implemented preventive measures such as lockdown, forced closure of businesses, and this movement restriction is the reason why unemployment increases. In turn, the economy experienced recessions. This is the reason why changes occur in the usual way of living of the households, specifically on their financial stability, as it is very much portrayed on the income and consumption level prior to the pandemic and during the crisis.
This study conceptualized a framework with variables including the profile of the household and familial finance management. The relation of variables is shown through a Venn diagram with the Bicol University College of Arts and Letters faculty in the center, the small circles that comprise the profile of the household such as the head of the family, total number of household members, the number of children living in the house, and the annual family income are interrelated. The diagram further shows that family finance management varies on the profile of the household. Financial management is determined through their livelihood, buying capacity, and patterns of consumption before and during the COVID-19 pandemic. The variables enclosed in the box represent how the household adapts to the crisis, which is reflected through the changes in household allocation.
The data collection procedure by writing and sending letters to the BUCAL office of the dean to get the respondents' email addresses. Then with the use of Google Forms, they distributed online survey questionnaires through email and Facebook Messenger. After which, the researchers retrieved the data and started the interpretation of the responses using basic descriptive statistics like frequency count, mean or average formula, percentage, ranking, and Microsoft Excel systemized formulas. The data results and findings are based on the responses of the 26 respondents of Bicol University College of Arts and Letters faculty members coming from different departments. To present the results and discussion, Ms. Maceres will discuss further. Starting it with the profile of the household. This figure illustrates the head of the family. It shows that 61% of the 26 respondents answered father as the head of the family, while 19% of them answered mother, 8% answered they were single, and 4% of them each answered son, daughter, and co-head of the extended family. Thus, father as the head of the family prevails. On the total number of household members, none of the respondents answered 10 and above. 3 respondents answered 7 to 9 members with a percentage of 11, 8 respondents answered 1 to 3 members with a percentage of 31, and lastly, 15 respondents answered 4 to 6 members with a percentage of 58. Therefore, the respondents' total number of household falls to the average household size of 4 to 6 members. Next is the number of children below 18 years old living inside a house. 58% answered that there are 1 to 3 children in their family, while 38% responded that there are no children below 18 years old. 4% answered that there are 4 to 7 children, and no one responded for 8 to 10 and more than 10 children. The results revealed that the respondents have minor children to take care of. Lastly, on the annual family income, the majority of the participants with 46% responded for 251,000 pesos to 500,000, while 23% responded for above 500,000, 23% responded for 101,000 pesos to 250,000 as well, and 8% responded for below 100,000 pesos. Hence, most of the respondents' annual family income falls within the range of the average annual family income of Filipino households, which is approximately 267,000 pesos stated by the Philippine Statistics Authority. Additionally, most of the respondents said that there are above 2 family members who are employed in their household. Also, according to a study, households that belong to an average household size earning 240,000 pesos to 1,380,000 annually are considered part of the middle income classes.
Moving on to answer the second statement of the problem, which is the most expensive item in the household budget before pandemic. The items are ranked from most expensive to least ones.
It is clearly seen in this figure that food is ranked first with 76%, ranking second are transportation and utilities with 48% and 40% respectively. Ranking third is transportation and communication, both have 32% from participants' responses. Ranking fourth is shopping with 28%, ranking fifth are leisure and communication, both with 36%, and rank sixth is shopping with 36%. The respondents also added medicine and education in the household budget with 12% and 4% respectively. These items were ranked differently by respondents, but the results shows that food is the most expensive item in the household budget since it is one of the basic necessities. Comparing it on the most expensive item in the household budget during pandemic, the figure shows that respondents ranked food as the most expensive item with about 88%, followed by utilities with 48%. Ranked third is communication with 52%, ranked fourth is transportation of about 32%, ranked fifth is leisure with 32%, and ranked sixth is shopping with about 36% of the respondents. The respondents also added items such as medicine, education, and gardening, which garnered 12% and 4% respectively. Thus, there is an increase in food, utilities, and communication, while shopping, leisure, and transportation decreases due to the IATF policy of COVID-19 pandemic.
The third statement of the problem is about the causes of change in the budget allocation for household items, except for quarantine policies implemented. The results show that 35% answered change in work arrangement, 27% responded for change in family members' needs, 23% responded change in family members' activities, 11% responded for change in income, and lastly, one respondent said that no changes occurred. Therefore, this implies that work arrangement is the main cause of change in household items budget allocation. And finally, this figure presents the adaptive changes in the familial finances management, taking the highest response of 30.99% on prioritizing basic needs, followed by 29.58% on budgeting expenses, 15.49% on reducing families' consumption, 9.86% on borrowing from their family and friends, 11.27% on borrowing from banks or other financial institutions or loan, and last with 1.41% both on applying to government assistance such as SAP and using their income-generating project. The result implies that prioritizing basic needs is the main adaptive changes that BUCAL families implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving on to Chapter 4, Ms. Prieto and Ms. Infestan will thoroughly discuss the conclusions, recommendations, and business implications.
With the presented results, conclusion derived from this study, starting from the profile of households, are that the father is seen as the main head of the family among BUCAL faculty, who usually holds authority, provides and makes decisions on things including financial management, while on the total number of household members, most of the respondents belong to an average household size which consists of 4 to 6 family members, including children with the highest response of 1 to 3 in the family, which implies that more expenses are incurred to attend to their needs on education and other basic needs. Lastly, majority of the respondents belong to average annual income ranging from 251,000 to 500,000 pesos, where most of them have 2 or more wage earners, implying that these families belong to a middle-income class, where the total of earnings reached 240,000 to 1,380,000 annually. On the most expensive item in the household budget, before pandemic, the rankings show that food comes as the highest, followed by utilities, transportation, leisure, communication, and shopping. And this indicates that necessities including food and utilities have always been a priority, even before pandemic. Transportation is ranked third as it has been part of our daily activities, attending to work or school affairs, while communication and shopping are the least utilized items. Moving on, the rankings of the most expensive items in the household budget are different compared to prior pandemic. It shows that food is still at the top, the most expensive item in the budget allocation, but more people rank it first, implying that consumption of food arises as family members are staying at home. The same goes with the utilities due to increase in water and electric consumption. Communication replaces transportation on the third spot regarding the increase in the use of internet and load or data, while transportation moved to a lower rank partly
because of the restrictions on going out. This is also the reason why leisure and shopping are the least items in the household budget. On the changes in budget allocation, most of the respondents stated change in work arrangement as the number one cause since work shifted digitally connected to the increased usage of communication such as internet and data. Lastly, it has been observed that prioritizing basic needs is the main adaptive changes acted upon by the respondent as implied on Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory that a restart in the hierarchy takes place during crisis and seen on the most expensive item during pandemic, which are food and utilities. The basic necessities that human needs and communication on the other hand becomes a need in this time where almost every activity is done digital. While the next adaptive change is budgeting expenses, which indicates that respondents have incorporated wise decision making more often when faced with stress or risk in financial resources. To present the recommendation of this study, Ms. Enfestan will discuss further.
From the foregoing findings and conclusions, we researchers formulated implications of the results to the business industry. Additionally, this descriptive developmental quantitative research study of the adaptive changes in familial finances management during the pandemic among Bicol University College of Arts and Letters faculty members is recommended to the following: to the faculty of Bicol University College of Arts and Letters so that they may be able to keep track of their familial finances and that they may incorporate financial actions in coping with the worsening financial circumstances to the institution of Bicol University so that they may be guided in formulating tips on how to manage their family budget, as it is important to be disciplined about how they spend and enable them to be prepared for similar situations and emergencies and overcome them more easily. To the entrepreneurs and business owners, they should be mindful in making smarter choices in their business, from creating budgets to learning to negotiate. To stay afloat, they must learn to find creative ways to change their business strategies. To the insurance companies, so that they may improve their marketing strategies and they may be able to appropriately safeguard the financial stability of household and firms by insuring their risk. To the future researchers, so they may further expound on the most expensive item in the household budget, ranking before and during COVID-19 pandemic through the financial impacts of COVID-19 and adaptive changes identified. We researchers propose particular implications of the results to policies in the business industry. Many families have had changes in the most expensive item that has impacted the shift of consumers' basket. Based on the observed interest in food, there is an opportunity for sellers or business owners to sustain profitability if they offer unlimited stocks to the consumers, as food is a necessity and is needed for survival. Moreover, businesses should strengthen their marketing strategies by engaging more in social media to gain potential customers, since some buyers might simply prefer not going to malls during this pandemic but instead want to keep shopping online and ensuring they receive their favorite and commonly used product. Uncertainty and risk exposure have shaped the way in which households prefer the item that was most expensive and formed the bigger portion of the household budget before and during COVID-19 pandemic. It has become an opportunity for the business industry, specifically in the identification of customers. That would be all for our presentation on the research paper entitled Adaptive Changes in Familial Finances Management During Pandemic among Bicol University College of Arts and Letters faculty members. Thank you.
Well, pleasant day to everyone. Today we are presenting to you the research study entitled Facilitation of Available Government Sustainable Livelihood Program to the Coconut Farming Household in the Municipality of Ginobatan. So before we start, I would like to present to you the researchers, starting with yours truly, Manager Partosa.
I'm Marcos Atala Christine.
I'm Richelda Pantoja.
Thank you. And then to formally start our presentation, allow me to present to you the rationale of the study. So the Philippine Development Plan, or the PDP 2017-2022, is the first medium-term plan anchored on Ambisyon Natin 2040. The current plan aims to lay a stronger foundation for inclusive growth, a high-trust society, and a globally competitive economy toward realizing the vision by 2040. Under the current plan, the target is to reduce poverty incidence from 21.6% in 2015 to 14% by 2022. This is equivalent to lifting about 6 million people out of poverty. The Sustainable Livelihood Program has been by far plays a significant role in combating poverty and social inequality. The World Bank states that these programs primarily aim to provide employment among households and by moving highly vulnerable households into sustainable livelihoods and towards economic stability. Moreover, on 2018, the total land area used for agricultural crop cultivation in the Philippines was around 13.5 million hectares, and 3.6 million hectares is intended for coconut cultivation. PSA reported that there are a total of 3.5 million coconut farmers in the country. In the municipality of Ginabatan, there's 16,351.28 hectares of land devoted to agriculture. 71.09% of it, or 11,624.72 is for coconut farming, according to the 2017 data of the Municipal Assessor's Office. Also based on the 2020 data of the Philippine Coconut Authority Region 5, there are 2,071 estimated coconut farmers in Ginabatan. So, proceeding to the statement of the problem, generally this study aims to understand or learn the appropriate sustainable livelihood programs to the coconut farming households in the municipality of Ginabatan. But specifically, this study aims to answer the following questions. First, what are the socioeconomic characteristics of the coconut farmers in the municipality of Ginabatan in terms of A, age, B, sex, C, family size, D, income, E, educational attainment. Then second, what are the household assets of the coconut farmers in terms of A, human capital, B, physical capital, C, natural capital, D, financial capital, and E, social capital. Third, what are the level of accessibility to available various livelihood programs of the government agencies? Fourth, what is the association of the socioeconomic characteristics to the level of the accessibility of the coconut farmers from the municipality of Ginapatan to the various sustainable livelihood programs? Fifth, what are the existing sustainable livelihood projects of the government? And lastly, what are the available government livelihood programs that are suited to the characteristics and existing resources of the coconut farming household? So, to identify the respondents, excuse me, convenient sampling was utilized. So, convenient sampling is a type of non-probability sampling which doesn't include random selection of participants. Since the researchers weren't able to have at least a population of coconut farmers in the municipality of Ginabatan, random sampling was not possible. Hence, the mentioned sampling method was instead utilized. The respondents is then set to a total of 105 coconut farmers. So to discuss the next slide, which is the theoretical framework, I would like to present Mr. Chalda Pantoja.
Theoretical framework. The study utilizes the theory on welfare state concepts on welfare economics IC 2004 and the sustainable livelihood frameworks Salisbury 2005. The welfare state or the intervention of the government is based on the Pareto optimal deviation. It means that the government assistance is anchored to the redistribution of the resources to achieve the Pareto optimality. In this case, the SLP is a government assistance towards the attainment of social welfare, while the Sustainable Livelihood Framework recognizes the importance of capital assets owned, controlled, claimed, or by some other means accessed by the household. It comprises of 5 main assets category: the physical capital, natural capital, financial capital, human capital, and social capital. Given the said capital asset, the beneficiaries of the SLP have a specific characteristic and vulnerability context that should be considered. These are essential aspects that are captured by the SLP framework. The conceptual framework of this study was based on the theory on welfare economics and SLP framework of capital assets. The government assistance and program on sustainable livelihood should consider the household assets and vulnerability context and socio-economic characteristics in the design and implementation of SLP. The vulnerability context refers to the external environment in which people live. This includes trends such as national or international economic trends, changes in available technology, political system, shocks such as illness or death, conflict, and weather. Seasonality of prices, production cycles, and so on. The vulnerability context is important because the three factors have a direct impact on the possibilities that poor people have to earn a living now and for the future. Wider economic conditions can either create more or fewer opportunities. An illness in the family can deprive a family's important source of income and force them to sell important assets that they have built up throughout the years. Seasonal shifts in prices, production, and employment opportunities are one of the most enduring sources of hardship of poor people all over the world. In this study, it intends to identify socioeconomic characteristics and household assets of the coconut farmers to identify or match the appropriate available SLP of the government. For the methodology, this study employed a quantitative method in investigating the appropriate SLP for the family members of the coconut farmers. Descriptive statistics was used to summarize the categorical variables into frequencies and percentage. Also, chi-square based test was utilized to measure the strength of association between one nominal variable with either another nominal or with an ordinal variable. And for the findings, it will be discussed by Ms. Atela Marcos.
So, good afternoon. I will be discussing the findings of our research. So, number one, a total of 69 out of 105 of the respondents in the municipality of Ginobatan who currently works as a coconut farmer were female and 36 were male. Their age ranges from 40 to 59 years old, which gathered 44 out of 105 responses, while the remaining coconut farmers ages from 39 years old with 18 responses, and 43 are 60 to 99 years old. Furthermore, coconut farmers in the said municipality are either elementary graduates, which has 39 responses, high school and college graduates, with 34 and 7 responses respectively, along with its undergraduates counterpart. It was also revealed that 61 coconut farming households belongs to the small family size with 1 to 4 members, while only 38 and 6 households have 5 to 8 and 9 and above family members, respectively. In addition, 103 of the respondents were classified as poor, and the remaining 2 are from the lower income middle class and lower middle income class. These findings corresponds to the socio-economic characteristics of the coconut farmers in the municipality of Ginobatan. So number 2, cooking is a technical skill that most of the coconut farmers' family members in the municipality of Ginobatan practice, and it is based from the 88 out of 105 recorded responses. In addition, 60 responded that they are able to start or manage a small business, and most of them, or about 28 coconut farmers, wished to open up a business like a sari-sari store. For the farm tools and equipment, most of them owned a hoe, which garnered 61 responses, and for kitchen equipment, majority of them, or 21 respondents, owned a refrigerator. With regards to natural capital, it shows that the municipality of Ginobatan is rich in land suitable for agricultural planting and farming based on the 100 responses out of 105 that were gathered. In addition, with a total response of 64, it clearly shows that the primary source of income of the coconut farmers in the Ginobatan is still from the farm. However, majority of them, or 73.33% of the respondents, were not able to save money, but still 65 of them did not consider availing credits. In relation, 72 of the total respondents said that they have someone to assist them for education of their family members in case of emergency, which is their relatives as identified by 44 coconut farmers. But with regards to opening or starting a business, most of them, or about 77 respondents, answered that no one can assist them. Lastly, majority of the coconut farmers, or about 62 of them, stated that they are not part or a member of any organization. So number 3, the respondents' level of accessibility is categorized into highly accessible, moderately accessible, fairly accessible, and not accessible, based on their awareness, participation, and its benefits. Awareness, 48 of the respondents answered it was moderately accessible. Some answered highly accessible, fairly accessible, and not accessible, which accounts to 25, 13, and 19 responses, respectively. On the participation, 41 respondents said it was moderately accessible. Only 20 stated it was highly accessible, 19 for fairly accessible, and 25 responses for not accessible. For its benefits, most of them, or about 41 respondents, said it was not accessible. Only 23 identified it was highly accessible, 33 for moderately accessible, and 8 responses for fairly accessible. So number 4, chi-square-based test, which is Cramus B, was utilized in measuring the magnitude of association of the variables such as age, sex, and family size to the SLP accessibility of the coconut farmers from the municipality of Ginabatan to the various sustainable livelihood programs between age and SLP accessibility. The computed result is 0.123934219 for sex and SLP accessibility, 0.319200334, and then for the family size and SLP, 0.110135253. So next is the Philippine Coconut Authority has provided the researchers a list of their existing sustainable livelihood programs, namely KEDP or KEDP Coconut Cacao Enterprise Development Project, Coconut Community Household Level Coconut Processing Project, Coconut Coffee Based Enterprise Development or CocoBed Project, and Livestock Raising under Coconut. Coconut farmers' participation, the availability of natural capital, and being part of an organization recognized by the PCA are salient factors for the selection of the beneficiaries and matching of the SLP accessibility. Number 6, last, 35 out of 105 respondents fits the descriptions and qualifications of the two programs, which are KEDP Coconut Cacao Enterprise Development Project and Coconut Coffee Based Enterprise Development or CocoBed Project. So to discuss the conclusions, number 1, a typical coconut farming household in the municipality of Ginobatan has 1 to 4 family members, and it is considered as a small family. However, most of them are still classified as poor according to the income class distribution. Moreover, a typical coconut farmer in the said community were female and weren't able to finish their studies until tertiary education. But regardless, they have a relatively strong workforce as majority of the respondents belong to the middle-aged adults. Number 2, technical and entrepreneurial skills are the visible assets that most of the coconut farmers and their family can practice. Aside from that, they also have farm tools and equipment but are mainly used for classical farming only. For the kitchen equipment, only few households own them, and lastly, the abundance of natural resources can be seen in the said municipality, and most of the respondents have an easy access to it. Number 3, the computed by average, the general level of SLP accessibility of the respondents is 2, which means these coconut farmers have full information about SLP. participated in the orientations but did not benefit anything from it. So next is among the variables that were tested for the magnitude of association with the SLP accessibility, only sex shows moderate association with it. The rest of the variables tested shows low association to the SLP accessibility. Next, concerned government agencies like the Philippine Coconut Authority has existing sustainable livelihood programs that has a main objective of helping the coconut farmers. Yet, the effect of these livelihood programs is perceived to take place in the next few years. In addition, the SAR programs have certain requirements that a small coconut farming households finds it hard to comply with. Next is the results of matching of the available sustainable livelihood programs to the socioeconomic characteristics, households, assets of coconut farmers, and their household in the municipality of Ginebatan has shown that only a few of them, or only few of the respondents, were able to fit within the given qualifications. Thus, only few of them can avail the provided SLPs. So these were our recommendations. Number one, the same study shall be conducted with the same population identity. Random sampling must be utilized in selecting the sample size to ensure the validity and accuracy of the result that was derived from the study. Number two, another method for data gathering is recommended, which is an in-depth and direct interview, as it really helps the researchers to collect data that can offer rich insights coming from the target respondents' experience and preferences. It can also help to formulate more relevant interpretation of the results. So, government agencies, organizations, and program heads that are concerned particularly in coconut farming shall have a more intensive membership or recruitment process. The procedures and requirements to avail the SLPs should be easy to comply with. They may use various platforms such as leaflets, brochures, and websites in disseminating information about the SLPs they provide. Aside from that, they may continuously formulate livelihood programs that can cater and support the coconut farmers' skills and assets, both for short and long term. Next is the future researchers must continue to look for more SLP offered by the government for the coconut farmers, but not limited to what the Philippine Coconut Authority is only offering. And to end this presentation, may I call on Ms. Mary Joy Portoto for the closing or ending remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natala. So, as we reach the last slide, I would like to express again our deepest gratitude as you lend your time to listen and to listen to to the presentation of our research study, which once again entitled Facilitation of Available Sustainable Livelihood Programs to the Coconut Farming Households in the Municipality of Ginebatan.
Good morning, everyone. This is the presentation of our group for the research entitled Facilitation of Available Government Sustainable Livelihood Program to the Spouses of Persons Deprived of Liberty in Legazpi City Jail. This presentation will discuss the following: study rationale and its objectives, the theoretical framework and conceptual framework, the methodology, the findings, results, and discussions, and the conclusions and recommendations that were formulated. Sustainable Livelihood Program is considered by the government as a capacity building program intended for the poor, vulnerable, and marginalized households and communities which seek to improve socio-economic conditions. Person deprived of liberty, commonly known as PDL, being part of this group, is offered by concerned government agencies such as BJMP and BOC of SLPs to help their families and for them to improve their social and emotional aspect. Beyond these efforts, families and household members of PDL are also vulnerable with challenges which worsen their conditions. The government, being the primary advocate of social justice in every aspect of development, needs to come up with specific measures that will help these households. Existing government SLP must be identified to evaluate if there are programs that are appropriate to the varying needs and resources of the household members. This study was conducted to analyze the appropriate existing livelihood programs of the government appropriate to the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty. Specifically, it attempts to find answer to the following research question. First, what is the socio-economic characteristics of the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty in terms of age, gender, family size, income, and educational attainment? Second, what are the household assets of the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty in terms of human capital, physical capital, natural capital, financial capital, and social capital? Third, what is their level of accessibility to the available various livelihood programs of the government agencies? Fourth, what is the association of the socio-economic characteristics, the level of the accessibility of the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty to the various sustainable livelihood programs? Fifth, what are the existing sustainable livelihood projects of the government? And lastly, what is the available government livelihood programs that are suited to the characteristics and existing resources of the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty? Next is the theoretical framework. This study utilized the theory on welfare state concepts on welfare economics. The welfare state, or the intervention of the government, was based on Pareto optimal deviation. Pareto optimal deviation was best described by an event that increases one's welfare without lowering the welfare of others. This creates an overall increasing welfare in the society. It also means that government assistance must be anchored to the redistribution of the resources to achieve the Pareto optimality. So in this case, the SLP was a government assistance towards the attainment of social welfare. Through SLP, the government can redistribute the society's wealth more effectively that can help promote in raising the standard of living. In addition, vulnerable and marginalized groups like the spouses of breadwinner PDL can surely benefit. Next is the conceptual framework. This research was based on sustainable livelihood framework. It recognizes the importance of capital assets owned, controlled, claimed, or by some other means accessed by the households. As you can see, it comprises of five main assets category: natural capital, physical capital, financial capital, human capital, and social capital. The concept of this study was based on the theory on welfare economics and SLP framework of capital assets. The government assistance and program on sustainable livelihood should consider the household assets and vulnerability contexts and socioeconomic characteristics in the design and implementation of SLP. In this study, it intends to profile the socioeconomic characteristics and household assets of the spouses of breadwinner fidel to identify or match the appropriate SLP of the government.
Methodology. Research design. The study employed a quantitative method in investigating the appropriate SLP for the spouses of persons deprived of liberty. Sample design. The simple random sampling technique was used to select the respondents of the study. Population identity. The population was the spouses of the persons deprived of liberty at the Legazpi City Jail. Sample size. The sample size was determined through a sampling formula. The formula to be used for the sample size determination was n is equals to n sub r over 1 plus the quantity n sub r plus 1 over n, where n is the sample size, n sub r is the finite population correction factor, n is the population size, c squared is the confidence interval which is 95%, p is the population proportion, and e is the margin of error which is 0.05%. Research strategy. This research makes use of the survey as a strategy for data collection procedure to the respective respondents. This method will be executed by administering questionnaire via suitable channels such as an online platform or by personally delivering it to the respondents. Instrumentation. The survey questionnaire was utilized to elicit information that will measure and categorize the socioeconomic characteristics, household resources or assets, and level of accessibility of the spouses of persons deprived of liberty to government programs. An in-depth document analysis and key informant interview to the program head of the agencies will identify the types and description of the SLP of the various government agencies. For the data collection procedure, an initial letter of request for data collection was sent by the researchers via email to the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology, Regional Office 5. Thereafter, to the researchers to fill up and submit the researcher acknowledgement form together with their school ID in order to sought clearance and approval from national headquarters of the BJMP. This was also in compliance to BJMP DPD SOP 008 or the Standard Operating Procedures on the Conduct of Research in BJMP. A memorandum was released to the Provincial Jail Administrator of Albay BJMP and to Legazpi City Jail Warden after the clearance was released by the national headquarters. A short meeting was set on March 28, 2021, between the researchers and the concerned BJMP personnel to discuss the flow and the strategy to be used for the data gathering process. The distribution of the research instrument was done by the researchers with the assistance of the on-duty jail guards. A total of 66 questionnaires was released during the data collection process. However, only 59 survey questionnaires were retrieved on April 9, 2021. Data analysis tools. Descriptive statistics was used to summarize categorical variables into frequencies and percentages. The Fisher exact test was utilized to measure the association
These are
between
the
the
highlights of the
socioeconomic
findings.
characteristics and the
A
level of
total of
SLP
59
accessibility,
spouses of
which are
breadwinner
both categorical
PDL were
variables.
identified
The
as the
Pearson
respondents of the
correlation was
study.
applied to
These were
analyze
composed of
one
48
continuous
female and
variable
11
and
male
one
spouses.
dichotomous variable.
In terms of age, most of the respondents are between the ages of 41 to 50 years old. However, the age of youngest respondent was 23 years old, while the oldest was 75 years old. The findings also revealed that spouses were all educated, majority of which finished the secondary or high school level. Similarly, most of the monthly household income of the spouses ranges from 1,000 to 5,000 pesos and 6,000 to 10,000 pesos. The highest monthly household income was only 30,000 pesos. On the other hand, there were only 9 respondents who revealed the size of their respective household, while most of the respondents did not disclose the number of household members. The household assets of the individual spouses, which was categorized into 5 main types, were also drawn from the study. The technical skills observed within the respondents are mostly cooking skills, while entrepreneurial skills are selling and management related. With regards to the type of business, 14% of the spouses own and manages a sari-sari store, karinderya, eatery, restaurant, and tricycle. In addition to this, the physical capital of the spouses, which refer to the tools and equipment the household owns, the findings showed that 10 of the 59 respondents had cooking tools such as cauldron and had also some equipment like television and electric fan. In terms of the natural capital, 25% stated that there were bodies of water like seas in their respective areas. Moreover, the data likewise uncovered the percentage value of those households which have savings and do not have savings. Majority of the respondents who have savings also stated that their savings were not enough to cater household expenses and start a business. In connection to this, 15% of the respondents also revealed that they were availing credit services, and another 15% of those who do not. The level of accessibility of the spouses to the available livelihood programs offered by the different agencies was determined through the numerical scale, which measured the degree of the respondents' awareness, participation, and the set of benefits they received. The various responses of the spouses revealed that most of them were not aware of the SLP offered by the government in general. The data also unfold that many of the respondents were inactive, participating in the different activities being complied to avail the SLP being offered. Furthermore, the level of benefits received by the spouse of breadwinner PDL was fairly accessible, and there were respondents who stated that they do not receive any from these SLPs. The Fisher exact test was utilized as a statistical remedy for chi-square test of independence. In particular, the respondents' age and gender and monthly household income was tested together with the level of accessibility of the spouses. The Pearson-R correlation test was used for monthly household income variable. The result of Fisher exact test between the spouse's age and SLP accessibility revealed that the two variables have no association to one another. The test exhibited a p-value of 1 and a p-cut-off value of 0.3709862, which was greater than the significance level of 0.05. Hence, it was found out that there was no association between the age of spouses and SLP accessibility. Comparably, it was also found out that there was no association between the gender and SLP accessibility, and the monthly household income and SLP accessibility with a correlation rating of 0.00391626, which indicated a very weak relationship among the two. There are 10 existing sustainable livelihood programs offered by various government agencies, which includes the Department of Trade and Industry Region 5, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Science and Technology, Department of Agriculture, and Technical Education and Skills Development Authority Region 5. These programs were implemented in general to create jobs, business or enterprises, and also to enhance the skills and knowledge of the target beneficiaries. These SLPs aim to improve the income level of the qualified beneficiaries, most particularly the poor and marginalized worker, and to help them upgrade their socio-economic status. There were only 4 existing livelihood programs offered by various government agencies that matched with the socio-economic characteristics and household assets of the spouses. These SLPs are supporting women's economic empowerment in the Philippines Project or Great Women Project 2, the ILP or Kabuhayan Program, Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program or the SETUP, and Special Training for Employment Program or the STEP. The collected information also unveiled that there were few spouses which are highly qualified to become possible beneficiaries, while most respondents are not qualified for the other programs.
Based on the results cited, the following conclusions were drawn from the study. First, the socioeconomic characteristics of the respondents effectively describe the identity of the spouses from one another. The differences between these characteristics served as a tool to evaluate the respondents' qualification for the SLPs being offered. The household assets of the spouses of breadwinner person deprived of liberty also varies from one household to another. These assets likewise showed the tools, equipment, possessed skills, and the available social, financial, and natural capital of the respondents that helped justify their level of accessibility to the livelihood programs of the government. There was also a slight variation on the level of accessibility of the spouses to the existing livelihood programs of the government. Despite of this, the respondents were unaware of such programs and did not benefit from it. There was no concrete association between the socioeconomic characteristics and existing resources of the spouses to the level of SLP accessibility. It also proved that the respondents' characteristics were independent and do not share any direct influence in accessing these SLPs. There are numerous government agencies which offered various sustainable livelihood programs to possible beneficiaries. These programs intended to assist qualified individuals towards economic growth and personal development. Last, out of the available sustainable livelihood programs implemented by the government agencies, there were only few SLPs that match with the characteristics and resources of the respondents. Moreover, there are also few spouses which can highly qualify as a beneficiaries for these programs. Based on the findings and conclusion presented, the following recommendations are hereby forwarded. Based from the socioeconomic characteristics of the spouses of the breadwinner PDL, and as per Philippine Statistics Authority considered, these spouses belong to the poor income household in the country. Therefore, the researchers suggest that the livelihood program shall be realized as another source of income for these two low-income spouses in order to uplift or at least improve their life given the skills and qualifications regardless of age, gender, and educational attainment. With that, the government can aid many spouses of breadwinner PDL who are asking for an assistance or support. Government agencies which offered sustainable livelihood programs must have devised effective and appropriate means to promote and inform the general public, including the spouses of breadwinner PDL, about the existence of SLPs and the qualifications and benefits to be received from it. Local government officials, including the barangay captains, should strongly coordinate with the concerned government's agencies which implements a livelihood program in order to raise the level of awareness and participation of the residents of a particular barangay. The spouses of breadwinner PDL in Legazpi City Jail can also form an organization that would represent them as a whole and be used to uniformly seek assistance from the government and non-government organization. And lastly, the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology and its appropriate division should also expand its projects and programs to the families of the PDL and make pertinent profiling for them. They can also have tapped other government agencies as partner institution to help not just the PDL but also their respective families.
I am Nicole May Haushan, a student from BS Economics 3A.
And I am James Daniel A. Avila from BS Economics 3B.
And today we are going to present our study entitled Digital Economy Implications of Paradigm Shift for Business Continuity in Legazpi City. The statement of the problem, or the objectives of the study, is to determine the effects of the paradigm shift to businesses in Legazpi City, to know the implications of paradigm shift from traditional economy to the digital economy, to know the factors that affect the business continuity in terms of technology, accessibility, logistics, regulatory policy, and ICT skill. To present certain measures to be conducted to sustain business continuity amidst the implications of the era of digital economy in Legazpi City.
Methodology, research design, and the statistical tool. The research design will be non-experimental research, and the population size will be the 90% of the continuing businesses in Legazpi City subject to population identity, which is businesses in Legazpi City that is operating in traditional setup that is utilizing digital economy or e-business. The sampling design is non-probability sampling method.
Sample size computation. The unknown number of continuing businesses in Legazpi City led us to the use of Cochrane's sample size formula for sample determination. The researchers used a 95% confidence interval in an approximate 90% proportion of the population with continuing businesses. Cochrane's sample size, where E is the desired level of precision, margin of error, P is the estimated proportion in percentage, Q is 1 minus P, Z is the Z-score. The sample size yields 139 businesses in Legazpi City.
Elements of selection and research strategy. The study will be composed of 139 respondents of businesses in Legazpi City using convenient sampling who will participate in our survey questionnaire through Google Forms and with a qualitative approach. Data analyzing tools. The percentage was employed to determine the frequency counts and percentage distribution of related variables of the respondents. Average weighted mean was used to determine the assessment of business profile with regards to the impact of their digital setup.
Findings. This consists of the data presentation, analysis, and interpretation. Types of business. Majority of the respondents are running a retail/merchandise business with a frequency of 76 out of the total 139 business owners. Next is food and beverage with 41, handmade or craft selling with 14, and lastly, service product with 8. Additionally, the year businesses were established started from 2004 with 1, 2007 with 1, 2008 with 2, 2015 with 2, 2016 with 8, 2017 with 1, 2018 with 13, 2019 with 21, 2020 with the greatest number, 64, 2021 with 26.
Likert scale of digitalization of businesses. Number 1. Digitalizing their businesses cost them less than traditional businesses, had an average weighted mean of 4.24, agree mark, and rank 4th. Number 2. Having enough manpower to operate their business digitally, had an average weighted mean of 4.13, agree mark, and rank 6th. Digitalizing their business increased their customers, had an average weighted mean of 4.63, strongly agree mark, and rank 1st. Number 4. Their business became more accessible on digital platform, average weighted mean 4.58, strongly agree mark, and rank 3rd. Number 5. It is easier to promote their business online, average weighted mean 4.62 with a strongly agree remark and rank 2nd. Number 6. Having enough resources to sustain your business online, had an average weighted mean of 4.21, agree remark, and rank 5th. Online businesses that started in traditional economy, 59 for traditional and 80 for digital. Likert scale for paradigm shift of traditional businesses digitally. Number 1. Digitalizing business cost you less than traditional business, had an average weighted mean of 4.36, agree remark, and rank 4th. Number 2. Gain more customers in digital business than traditional business, had an average weighted mean of 4.36, agree remark, and rank 4th. Number 3. Digitalization of your business required you more labor than traditional business, had an average weighted mean of 2.89, neutral remark, and rank 5th. Number 4. Digital business operation is safe from calamities and other disasters, had an average weighted mean of 4.23, agree remark, and rank 2nd. Number 5. Do you find it convenient operating in digital platform than traditional setup? Average weighted mean of 4.25, agree remark, and rank 1st. Number 6. Digital business have a stronger income or sales potential than traditional businesses, had an average weighted mean of 4.21, agree remark, and rank 3rd.
Device commonly used among the business. Majority of the respondents are using mobile phones with a 136 frequency from the total business owners,
whereas 47 are also using laptops, 13 are using computers, and 10 are using tablet or iPad. Platforms utilized. 134 of the total respondents are utilizing social media platforms, 26 of which are also using e-commerce platforms. For the checkout method, 19 businesses have created their own website, whereas 10 are utilizing Google Forms. Businesses that make use of messaging as a checkout method ranked first with 116, while Mindbase is ranked second with 45. Delivery method. 48 businesses make use of couriers, while only 4 are using electronic delivery. 98 out of the total respondents employ Meetup or Pickup as their logistics, and 59 businesses have their own personal delivery man. Difficulties or restrictions faced by businesses. 22 are having problems with the requirements, whereas majority of them have encountered delivery restrictions considering the recent lockdowns. Only 14 have problems with taxing and 1 with face-to-face transactions. On the other hand, 50 businesses do not have any difficulties. ICT skills possessed by the business personnel. Considering that most businesses make use of basic messaging as their checkout method, majority of the business owners utilize basic messaging and social media platform in their operations with a frequency of 105. 23 are those who are skilled in managing an e-commerce website operation, while 30 of which chose hotline or phone calling.
Most of the business operation had 1 to 3 personnel. For 1 personnel, there are 49 responses. For 2, there are 54 responses. And for 3, there are 22 responses.
Based on the summary of findings, the conclusions are hereby drawn. The digitalization of businesses provide less cost in terms of capital investment and labor, thus giving them higher sales potential. Through proper promotion and marketing strategies, sellers have declared that they have gained more interest via online platforms and its ability to reach bigger audiences. However, they are wary of opening their business online because of bogus buyers and lack of attention. Without consistent interest from the public as well as buyers, it will affect their operational profit, while the overhead cost keeps increasing that soon would cost them more than what they earn.
The paradigm shift of the business payoff. Businesses that started in traditional physical store setup indicated that operating in the digital economy cost them less, mostly without physical stores and overhead expenses, hence making their business safe from calamities. Furthermore, sellers have imparted that their business receives stronger sales potential due to unlimited marketing activities that are possible with online platforms. Benefits on businesses. Mobile devices are comparably smaller and easier to use than any other gadgets, therefore making business owners prefer to use it while also taking consideration that e-commerce and social media platforms are most effective with them. Majority of the online sellers make use of basic messaging as a checkout method to spare their staff from hassle in operating the business. Moreover, Meetup or Pickup is most used mode of delivery, considering its convenience and less fee for both parties, while also taking into account several delivery restrictions because of pandemic.
Better information and communication skills is essential in running an online business and therefore encourages its continuity. Online communities poor interest with business platforms that deliver posts that are clear and compelling, hence helping to attract attention. Additionally, staff who can respond and solve inquiries and problems as fast and efficiently as possible makes a huge contribution into a business's long-term success. It is significant for the business owner and their staff to not only do the job properly, but also possess skills in which they can communicate their thoughts and ideas on the production and preparation of the products and services that are being marketed online for its further improvement.
On the basis of the findings and the conclusions presented in the study, the following recommendations are hereby prepared.
The business subject to digital economy are encouraged to open their business in other platforms. This will broaden the scope of their business prospect, affixed with the goal and availability of the customers in the opening platform. Thus, opening in another platform such as e-commerce site will require the business to expand their knowledge in information and communication skills. The business caters to an array of customers and it requires bandwidth and technological equipped digital management. The business should have enough device to increase their engagement and response to potential customers. In response to the availability of business on multiple platforms, it is advised for them to also have multiple devices that can oversee the operation and respond to other queries.
The business should also increase its delivery man or improve the logistics of the business. This will increase the customer relationship and customer trust in the business that eradicates the doubts. The same context with increasing trust in increasing the marketing strategy of the business. Marketing strategy contributes to the whole operation of the business. This will increase the engagement of the business and so the possibility to reach potential customers. For the continuity of the business in this time of calamities and pandemic, a shift from traditional business to digitalized business is advised. The researchers found out that the paradigm shift of the business could be the answer to continuity. The data shows that it is convenient, safe and calamities-proof, and has a stronger income or sales potential than traditional business. The paradigm shift of the business does not apply to all businesses. The digitalization of business should be undertaken if the opening of business will add value and would not incur a greater cost than the previous state. Thus, digitalization of business should be open when it is viable to the type of business, adds value, and does not incur another cost for no gain.
Good day. Ryan Justin Sabater and I, Charlotte Advincula, are here to present to you, in behalf of our co-proponents, Mialyn Campita, Clarence Maraliano, and John Ronel Yuga, our project feasibility study. The COVID-19 pandemic greatly disrupted lifestyle behaviors of the community and adversely affected the operations of businesses and the economy of the country as a whole. Lifestyle behaviors are essential factors in the overall well-being of individuals. However, many individuals became less physically active during the extended lockdown and community quarantine, leading to worse diets, weight gain, and loss of physical fitness. Too much sedentary behavior and isolation increase not only physical fitness issues, but also mental health issues like anxiety and depression. These health problems were very challenging and difficult to solve because the fitness industry has not been spared from the downside of the pandemic. In view of strict health protocols, the government ordered the closure of fitness and wellness centers. Hence, these centers lost their ability to generate revenue from monthly membership dues. And when they were allowed to reopen by the government with limited capacity, the fitness centers that earned nothing over the past months of lockdown faced health prohibitions that resulted in additional expenses. Since being healthy and physically fit is more important now more than ever, in-house exercises and usage of online tools like online applications were promoted to prevent exercise reduction. With everything stated, the proponents of the study thought of the project entitled Healthy, a proposed downloadable online fitness marketplace application for fitness and wellness centers in the province of Albay. This study has the following objectives: to develop healthy, to create a platform that helps strengthen the relationship between the centers and their customers, to suggest a sustainable and innovative approach to business operations of fitness and wellness centers, to help centers in the province recover from losses brought by extended lockdowns, and to promote physical fitness and wellness and address physical and mental health side effects brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. Along with these objectives, the proposed success indicators are focused on the development of a fully functional application and its impact to the operation of the partner fitness centers and to the users of the application. The proposed means of verification shall include the usage of feedbacks and reviews and the usage of key performance indicators. The identified objectives will benefit the target beneficiaries, which are the buyers of fitness and wellness services, and its service providers or the local fitness centers representing the fitness industry in Albay, as well as the community, academic instructors, and future researchers. In order to successfully achieve its objectives, the project shall be implemented through the following project phases and implementation stages. The pre-launch phase. This phase is primarily focused on identifying the potential end users of the software application, the creation of product requirements document with the help of partner fitness centers and software developer, the development of monetization strategy, and the creation of application design as well as its development. This phase shall also include the creation of application journey, featuring the basic and the high-level technical functionalities of the application, the development of healthy terms and conditions and privacy policies, and the registration of the application. The launch phase. This phase includes the official launch and release of the developed software application named Healthy to its intended stakeholders, beneficiaries, and clients for use. Healthy shall be distributed through online digital distribution markets such as Google Play Store and Apple Store. Partner fitness centers shall be provided with a walkthrough on the use of the application and will undergo training by conducting simulated drills and dry runs on the online fitness coaching. Advertisements and promotions in various social media platforms shall be done to extend client reach. The application shall also use the services of 3 payment channels, namely Google Play in-app payments, Apple Store in-app payments, and Dragon Pay generic biller for in-app transactions of application users. The post-launch phase. This phase is concerned with the management, monitoring, and overall assessment of Healthy after its release. This will allow the project team to acquire ideas for continuous improvement through monitoring interventions. Key performance indicators shall also be used to have a quantitative measurement of the application's performance. These enumerated phases will be carried out by the project proponents, and each proponent shall have their own designation and functions, thereby composing the project management team. The project management team shall be in close communication with the outsourced professional application developer, as well as their support teams and other third-party advisors and consultants that may help during the operation of this project.
Let me present to you the estimated total project cost and proposed work and financial plan. As we all know, every project requires cost. For this project, the estimated total cost will be 147,700 is around 59 and 44 cents. This estimate shall include the cost of the design, development, testing, and maintenance of the application. It shall also include estimated marketing, administrative, and legal expenses after the launching of the application. The amount presented for design and development is an estimate based on a known freelancing website known as Fiverr.com. Fiverr is known to have an SSL certificate to protect the billings and personal information of both the buyer and the seller. The developers were chosen based on the ratings and reviews, number of transactions, and their certifications. Hence, the quality of the developed application is ensured. All costs associated with the application startup and initial development and all other operating expenses incurred shall be the company's responsibility through the use of company funds. By doing this, more fitness centers will take the opportunity to extend their operations through the application because they would not share any cost in the application's development. With regards to sustainability, continuous app improvements, and the establishment and expansion of a loyal user base are the aspects that require the most attention to ensure the long-term viability of the project. The first action point for sustainability is to conduct periodic app maintenance and bug fixes to ensure a consistently positive user experience. The second action point for sustainability is to accordingly improve the app based on customer reviews and other key performance indicators. The third action point is the app interface optimization to achieve a more user-friendly and aesthetic design in order to cater to and attract a wide variety of age groups. Solely improving the app's usefulness and accessibility is not enough to ensure a long-term sustainability. There is also a need to maintain existing users and attract new ones. By designing a comprehensive marketing plan backed by research regarding existing market conditions, consumer behavior, and accompanying business risks, a better guarantee for market and user base expansion is achieved. The next sustainability action point is the maintenance and strengthening of the established user base through benefits and incentives, by pre-selecting users eligible to redeem such incentives and benefits. Moreover, calculating the profit margin should be performed to ensure a minimal or no decline in revenues despite implementing the benefits and incentive program. Lastly, to satisfy the objective of aiding the local fitness industry survival, Healthy intends to provide employment opportunities to recently laid-off fitness instructors nearby. The management must conduct a guided walkthrough of the application's interface and features to help the newly hired instructors attain a more comprehensive understanding of its mechanisms and give assistance to these newly hired instructors during their transitionary period and continually ensure that professional relations and effective coordination with clients are in place. The effective execution of the plan mentioned earlier shall enable the Healthy app to present a long-term, sustainable, and innovative digital solution for the fitness industry's operational constraints caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. That concludes the presentation of our group's proposed feasibility study.
Good day, I am Renzel Morata. My group mates are Jasmine Banta, Ivy de los Santos, and Kathleen Rubies, and we are going to present our proposed project entitled Maximizing the Resources of Existing Cafes in the City of Sorsogon Through Additional Co-working Spaces for Rent. Now, what is a co-working space? This is defined as a space that assembles people to work independently or collaboratively. According to the website coworker.com, in Bicol region, only one co-working space for rent has an active operation, and probably some of you are already familiar with it. It's a Control Alt work in Legazpi City, Albay. Now, it's not just the lack of co-working spaces in the city of Sorsogon that pushed us in this project, but also the COVID-19 outbreak, which made most of the people shift to an online mode of working and learning. And undeniably, working and studying from home causes a feeling of isolation that even our usual comfort zones, our homes, or our bedrooms are no longer enough to sustain our state of well-being. With that, a co-working place that follows safety protocols will be a great help to make them feel the sense of productivity again.
During the implementation of modified general community quarantine, it is already evident in Sorsogon City that most people already go out. As a matter of fact, according to the online survey conducted to students residing in Sorsogon City, 5 out of 10 already tried to stay at cafes nearby to study and finish their tasks. However, not all people go to cafes to study or accomplish a task. Some just want to hang out, and this is what causes the distraction. Given the comfortability of the existing cafes in Sorsogon City, we came up with the idea of maximizing these existing resources of the cafes. It is not just to help those students struggling at home with their academic requirements or those employers to accomplish their tasks, but also for the management to help them maximize their resources while giving them another way for higher profitability. Now, to further explain our project, let me present our four main objectives: to introduce features of an effective co-working space, to identify the materials and design for renovation, to estimate the total cost of renovation, and to determine earning potential of the co-working space.
Based on existing studies, standard rates, computations, present situations of cafes in Sorsogon City, and the professional advices, we came up with the features of an effective co-working space, which are a near to the city location, dimensions of 60 square foot for small cafes and 177 square foot for average cafes, capacity of 2 persons per small and 6 per average, good ambience and privacy, affordable hourly rental rate of 106 and 96 centavos for small co-working space and 103 pesos and 25 centavos for average. For the second objective, materials to be used for the renovation should be high quality and the design must be well organized. To present a clear visual of this design, here is a walkthrough experience prepared by architect Nicole Morata for small and average cafes.
The total estimated cost of renovation is 55,314 pesos for small cafes and 224,663 for average cafes. For the last objective, which is to determine the earning potential of this project, the proponents first computed for the break-even points, which are 1 hour and 29 minutes for the co-working space of a small cafe and 2 hours and 47 minutes for the average cafe. This means that when customer rents their space for more than this stated number of hours, there will immediately be a profit for the cafe. Gross profit margin percentage is also used, which are 82.39% and 88.94% for co-working space of a small and average cafe respectively.
Given the effective features, materials, and design, minimal cost of renovation, and the earning potential, we believe that this kind of space in a cafe will be very beneficial. Besides, a meaningful 5 seconds is way better than unfocused 5 hours. Always begin smartly. That's
Good day, everyone. I am Kim Alexis Jane Prieto Maolion, and together with me are my co-proposers, Jan Kate Balino, Pauline Corporal, and Ashley Marie Rances. We are fourth-year students of Bicol University from the Department of Accountancy, Block C, and we present to you our project feasibility study entitled Plant Eco, Your Body to a Healthy Body, with a vision to help nurture bodies with great taste for a fair price, all while empowering local farmers in the midst of the new normal, and a mission to reinvent food ingredients to healthier and delectable cost-efficient dishes by patronizing locally grown crops. To have a more detailed discussion of our study on how it was planned out and the reason why Plant Eco is a worthy investment, may I call in Miss Corporal.
Thank you, Kim. Due to the ongoing outbreak by severe acute respiratory syndrome or COVID-19, everything we called normal were defined again. Self-care methods were implemented by the DOH and strict public health measures were taken by our government. Because of this, healthy diets became more popular and plant-based diet is one of the most popular diets there is according to Journal of Geriatric Cardiology, as this diet may help reduce the risk of getting diabetes, cancer, and help promote brain function. This pandemic also did and still does great damages and losses to our farmers due to the strict public health measures that our government has taken. Lockdowns, community quarantines, and price freezes greatly affected their farming. With this, we have decided to innovate healthy products that will not just help the farmers of Bicol and promote crops that the Bicol region has to offer, but also to offer a healthier lifestyle as they would be given an alternative to their everyday choices. This project proposal will be named and called as Plantito, derived from the slang term plantito, which means someone who loves plants. This project proposal will be about substituting high-carb ingredients into a more balanced and nutritious ingredients. The intended dishes to be included in the menu are pasta and milk, where the main plants that we will be utilizing in creating the products are jackfruit seeds and pili nuts. Now, what do we aim to achieve in making this project proposal? This project aims to replace some of the food's traditional contents with plant-based alternatives, and also aid in promoting local farmers' produce and to empower them in producing their crops. In addition to these two general objectives, there are 5 specific objectives that we, the proposers, identified: to sell plant-based dishes, to empower local farmers, to raise awareness on the benefits of plant-based diets, to help boost the local economy, and give consumers healthier alternatives when it comes to food. Now, Ms. Frances will give us a depth information about the product differentiation.
Thank you, Pao. In coming up with products to sell in our business, we first asked ourselves, what is in the market? Upon doing research, we found out that currently these products exist. With all these available in the market, we then asked ourselves, what is not in the market? After careful consideration of customer needs and wants, as well as our current situation, we came up with 2 types of products. First, we decided to offer plant-based pasta dishes, which come in 3 variations. We will be serving veggie spaghetti. This will be fused with tomato sauce mixed with various vegetables, such as chopped zucchini, dried oregano, peeled tomatoes, spinach leaves, and a handful of fresh basil leaves. We will have our own version of the carbonara dish, which will be a meatless carbonara with vegetable-based umami bombs merged with fresh asparagus and vegan cheese. Lastly, we have aglio olio, which is perfectly cooked spaghetti pasta combined with slow-toasted garlic sautéed in olive oil, topped with some fresh parsley and vegan cheese. Aside from plant-based pasta dishes, we wanted to offer a type of beverage. We decided that we wanted to serve peanut milk. Or peanut milk may be used as an additive for coffee, hot or cold chocolate, tea, protein shakes, or can be consumed as it is. As part of our advocacy for environmental sustainability, we have opted to use glass bottles and biodegradable sugarcane bagasse meal boxes. Glass bottles may be reused as storage, and the containers made of sugarcane bagasse is sold in water, which in turn does not leave any waste. In order to reach our target market, we will be using these social media platforms. For our modes of distribution, we shall be doing deliveries or meetups, both following safety protocols. This is our proposed order form, which shall require necessary details about our customers and their orders. Let us now proceed to the key players of Plantito, which will be discussed to us by Ms. Balino.
Thank you, Ash. The expected participants and beneficiaries of the project are divided mainly into 2, the direct and the other probable participants. The first participants are the direct participants. This includes first the consumers of plant-based products, provided that they aren't allergic to any ingredients used in the milk and dishes and that they are 5 years of age and above due to precautionary measures. The second one are the local farmers that will be supplying us with the necessary raw materials. Other probable participants include potential retailers, buyers from restaurants, restaurant owners, and those consumers residing outside of Legazpi and Daraga. Aside from those I've mentioned, this study may also benefit researchers and research institutions to look into possible alternatives to prolong the shelf life of the ingredients and to further look into the health benefits one may get from eating a plant-based diet. We will now go over with the implementation plan of Plantito. The pre-operation activities will only include communicating with the suppliers. It will last for approximately 21 days, after which we will be allotting a 4-day period for promotional activities and picking up orders on the last day. The production period will last for 3 days, which will start on the 3rd day of the promotional period. This is to ensure that the products are freshly made upon delivery. Let us now look over to our production plan. It is divided into 2 phases, the preparation phase and conversion phase, which includes milk production and pasta strips making. The production process will be held at one of my co-proposers' residence. We have also prepared our project law frame which contains the summaries of activities, outcome, and the goals of Plant Ito, which will serve as a guide as to start of operations. It also details plans of actions that may be undertaken due to external factors that may affect project implementation. Ms. Maolion will now discuss the estimated project cost.
The initial operational budget amounted to 15,000 pesos, which consists of the cost to procure the ingredients, packaging, and other notable expenses such as salaries of the employees, utilities, and other necessary supplies like hairnets and gloves. Since the project aims to deliver plant-based food and beverages that will not break one's bank, the target prices should be affordable and worth the quality of the products. Hence, to measure the financial sustainability of the proposed project, we will be utilizing profitability ratios and profit margin ratios. These ratios will help us to assess how profitable the business is from using or managing the existing resources to generate profits and add value to its clients. Aside from this, we will also be using efficiency ratios to measure the business's ability to use its assets to generate revenues.
It's important for us to be aware of possible challenges that may arise during the course of implementation. Firstly, in terms of storage, the most problematic will be unscheduled power outage. In case of long power interruption before delivery, pili nut milk will be enclosed in a cooler with ice. Unused ingredients shall be stored at room temperature and only placed in the fridge once the power is back. Secondly, there may also be instances where jackfruit seeds and pili nuts become unavailable. In these times, a possible remedy is to switch to other healthy alternatives such as taro root and carrot in lieu of jackfruit seeds and banana instead of pili nuts. Last but not least, since only the seeds of the jackfruit will be utilized, the fruit pods of which can be sold. This can be an alternative mode of generating funds and can also be a part of the menu offered by Plantito. Moving forward, we decided to utilize the 4Ps in marketing to guide us in achieving marketing and cost efficiency. The 4Ps are the product, price, place, and promotion.
Plant Ito will ensure to offer quality products for affordable prices. Given the thorough planning made by the proponents, the study is proved to be feasible. Hence, once the full operations start, we will strive to make the business's VMGO happen and continually improve and offer innovative products in the market that will surely become your body to a healthy body. Thank you so much for listening.
Good day, everyone. I am May Bisuyo from BS Accountancy 4A. On behalf of my team members, Rachel May Banday, Shane Darren Basabe, and Mark Joey Noel, I am here to present our project feasibility study entitled Saud, a proposed online Facebook farmers market as a response for the new normal in the Albay province. Almost 2 years since the announcement and implementation of enhanced community quarantine, the country continues to grapple with the health and economic issues brought about by the pandemic. Another issue looms on the horizon: food security. As the government restricted physical contact to mitigate spreading of the virus, precautionary measures have been taken, such as temporary closure and suspension of trading markets and public transportation, and the tightening of community borders with a series of checkpoints, which created a breakdown in the agricultural supply chain. The system-wide disruption in the agricultural sector resulted in a financial loss for farmers who can sell their products. To help the local farmers in the province of Albay, Saud, a proposed online Facebook farmers market, in partnership with the local government units and the Department of Agriculture, aims to provide an avenue where farmers can sell their agricultural products and can be easily accessed by consumers by simply ordering online and having it delivered to their homes within the shortest time possible. Fresh agricultural produce of the local farmers are marketed through the online platform. Products are updated for changes in price and their availability. Customers will place their orders and have the option to either pay online or cash on delivery. Upon confirmation, delivery riders will be notified and the customers will expect their products to be delivered at their doorstep. Saud offers convenience, affordability, and ability to conduct faster shipping, as riders can easily weave through the highly congested streets or reach far-flung areas. The beneficiaries of this project are the local farmers and people in need of agricultural products such as vegetables, poultry, rice, and pork. Helping local farmers in this project will also directly benefit the consumers of agricultural products. It will increase the supply of agricultural products in the market by providing producers a medium to facilitate the transportation of agricultural products to the consumers. Moreover, this project provides job opportunities to the residents of Albay. Again, this is Saud, a project feasibility study aiming to help farmers bring fresh farm goods to your doorsteps. Thank you.
Okay, there you have it, viewers. You have seen the presentations of our students from BUCBEM presenting a while ago the best thesis, the best business plans of our students, the best project feasibility studies. We hope that we were able to impart and share with you these outputs of our students, showing that even we are facing the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, but we were able to stand and still meet the challenging demand and responsibility of our students. To synthesize, for the BS Entrep program, they were able to showcase innovative and novelty products that somehow answers to the endless needs of our customers and clients. For the Business Administration Department, they were able to come up with a study analyzing the changes and the adjustments made by the respondents amidst of the present health crisis that happening or that is happening not only in the country but the entire world. For the business economics students, almost the same studies were conducted that indeed it shows the changes in the lives of people who were affected or even those people who were not affected by this deadly pandemic, but there are some changes that occurred in the past years and months. For the accountancy department students, they were able to present project feasibility studies that paved the way for the introduction of new concepts, new ideas, and plans along business, incorporating the aspects of accountancy. To close this program, allow us to thank those who in one way or the other had helped in the realization of this significant event. Without them, this momentous activity will not be a successful one. First and foremost, we have to thank the BU Extension Management Division for partnering with us, the BUCBEM, especially to Professor Rowena Soilo, the OIC Director of the EMD, to Mel Bulawan. Thank you so much, Mel, for the constant communication and coordination from the day one up to kahapon, up to now, and also to other staffs of the EMD. And also, we'd like to extend our appreciation to our President, Dr. Noli M. Mascarenhas, for the words of encouragement he uttered a while ago. And of course, to our beloved Dean for the support and the conceptualization of this event as part of our bigger contribution to the 52nd founding anniversary of Bicol University. And of course, to our Associate Dean, Professor Sheila B. Disuyo. And of course, as mentioned a while ago by our Dean, to the other department chairs, the Department Chair of the Business Administration, headed by Professor Christine Ballesteros, to the Department Chair of the Economics Department, headed by Dr. Clea Bongat, to Ma'am Pabilando of the Department of Accountancy. Thank you so much also. And of course, to the faculty members of the Bicol University College of Business Economics and Management, and to the other viewers, attendees who participated and become part of this activity, and of course to our dear students. Thank you so much for sharing your output and manifesting your tireless effort in this event. For without your support and cooperation, this activity will not materialize. Again, thank you so much. Maraming salamat. And before we end, probably our Dean would like to add something or to say something about this event, sir. Sir?
Okay. So once again, I would like to congratulate the researchers, the student researchers, and their advisors and evaluators for presenting their pandemic responsive and pandemic relevant researches, innovations, and creations, and the organizers. With special thanks to Professor Edgar Barameda, to OIC Weng, and to Mel, and the 61 participants, which I can see on the screen, who demonstrated their interest, support, and patience by staying in the meet until this conclusion. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Barameda.
Thank you so much, sir. Correction please, kanina nabanggit ko Ma'am Pilona. It's Ma'am Analisa Pabilona, not Pabilando. Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much, Ma'am Ana of the Department of Accountancy. And with that, we'd like to again to extend our warmest thanks and appreciation for your participation and involvement in this momentous event as a contribution. I mean, as an involvement of our college through the able leadership ng aming Dean, Dr. Eddie SC, the Associate Dean, the 4 department chairs, faculty members. Again, we'd like to extend our warmest thank you. And again, see you on the next Foundation Day anniversary celebration of BUCBEM. Mabuhay po kita, Gabos. Mabuhay mga estudyante
Mabuhay.
ng Bicol University College of Business Economics and Management. Thank you so much. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat and happy lunchtime. Thank you po. Mabuhay.